Need a theme song.
We do need a theme song.
Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. It's the Mighty Dave and Ari show.
That was beautiful.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Yeah.
I will
Now,
imagine the applause.
we can do that if you want. There's tools for that. Actually, somewhere, somehow, there's tools. Anyway, welcome to the Mighty Dave and Ari show, the greatest of all of the shows. Um, we don't have any listeners yet because nobody's caring right now, but it's cool.
We'll get it together.
Oh, there's some applause for you.
Nice.
All right.
I'm,
Anyway,
I'm actually really devastated that no one was listening as I sang our theme song.
well, somebody will listen to it on the recap, I'm sure.
Oh, true. See that. I forgot that people go back and listen to these. To all of our listeners in the future, we salute you.
Well, this week's been a little bit light on actual hockey, but there was some fun hockey at the beginning of the week with the All-Star game. Since our last podcast, which we did during the draft, which was quite fun,
Which I was not here for.
you were not here for, so I do want your take on that, but at the same time, I want your take just on the All-Star game in general. What you felt were the highlights of the weekend and what you enjoyed the most.
Well, definitely, I love the draft. I love this draft was one of this draft may have been the best draft. Obviously, they were well hydrated. It was hilarious. I thought it showed off the personality of the sport really well, which is something hockey does not do generally. Um, it was fun to hear, as the APB people go up to the draft. Aaron Ekblad said he sat with Getzlaff at breakfast. Um, Philip Forsberg was talking to Tyler Seguin and saying he had a great backhand. Those are really awesome things to hear, just to see how the connections are built and maintained. At the end of the weekend, someone asked Tyler Seguin about the fact that Crosby didn't come, and Seguin said he only cared because he hasn't met Crosby yet, which would never have ever occurred to me. But they're far enough apart in age, and they've never played on the same team. Tyler Seguin wasn't on Team Canada, wasn't even invited to camp. So I really enjoyed the draft. I like the skills comp too. I thought that the breakaway challenge, as always, was super fun. Although the shootout part went really fast. Hardest shot
You
always
talking about
sounds
the
like
breakaway, or the final shootout part?
okay. So the breakaway, like the Ryan Johansson picked up a child breakaway, was super fun. I wish they would let Johnny Gaudreau set his stick on fire though. One regret. But the actual shootout, like very last thing they did, went way too fast.
Way too fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was because they felt like they had some sort of time restraint, but the entire thing itself was only like 2 hours, so it wasn't like it was that long of a total event anyway.
Yeah. You always think that the hardest shot is going to be like super exciting, but the reality is that it's just people shooting pucks at an empty net, so it's not that exciting.
I ranked my events personally a couple weeks ago on Reddit somewhere, and that was like my least favorite thing.
It's
Is
like
the hardest shot because you're right. It is just guys shooting the puck into a net. Like, sure, it's impressive, but at the same time, it doesn't take nearly the skill of like shooting the targets out of the corners or doing the relay or anything like that.
here's how they should make it better. They should have a bunch of like objects that you shoot it at, and like the objects are of different difficulties to break. So if you had like a watermelon and then like some cardboard and like piece of glass that's like an inch thick or something, and then you had to shoot at the different objects and see what you could break, that would be extremely entertaining.
Oh,
We
for
probably
sure.
shouldn't do glass though because that would be not safe.
I think there's a video out there somewhere where they do that, where they just put like a pinata in front, and then they put like a gumball machine, and they just like have all this stuff. I would have to find it, but I know that they have there's a video out there where people are shooting hockey pucks at things right in front of a net and breaking them. It's pretty
There
cool.
is, I've seen that. There's also a video where the Stahl brothers just like put up a bunch of shit in their garage and shoot at it, and it's extremely entertaining. It's also kind of sad because Jared, the fourth one, is there and he's like can't hit shit.
I remember when he was coming up, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to be the best of the four of them," and he's been absolutely the worst.
Well, Eric Stahl says he has the most natural talent, which is probably the problem, actually.
Because he
He
doesn't work
probably
hard
didn't.
enough, or
Yeah,
what?
doesn't work hard enough.
Hmm. That might be true. He might feel entitled or something. But
Also,
from what I understand, he just isn't up to speed with the NHL.
yeah, which sounds like doesn't work hard enough to me.
Perhaps that's true. Speaking of people that don't work hard enough, this week Mike Richards was sent down to the minor leagues. He went through waivers. No team picked him up. And he is now a $4.5 million cap hit still to the Kings instead of his 5.5. As a Kings fan, I'm glad he's not on our roster right now with the way he's been playing all season, as he only has 15 points and only 5 goals. But at the same time, obviously, we're still eating the significant part of his contract. I don't know that anybody's going to actually make a move for him, although there's a lot of rumors going out right now. I think that if this doesn't shake him up, I don't know what else Dean Lombardi can do. He's already had heart-to-hearts with him. He's already threatened to trade him before, which obviously didn't happen because nobody wants him. So I think maybe in the back of Mike Richards' head, he always felt like, well, nobody's going to trade me because of my contract, so I'm good. But now at this point, it's like he's riding the bus from Manchester, to Worcester. And it's like, woo!
There were 2 points that other people made that I thought were relevant to Mike Richards. One is, in 30 Thoughts, it was pointed out that the retroactive or the cap recapture penalty would not hit a team that picked him up that hard. LA is already going to get the worst of it.
Yes.
Which, frankly, cap recapture is extremely confusing to most people, I think, and that had escaped me until now. So it does surprise me a little bit that if cap recapture isn't going to ping a team like Calgary, you might as fucking well. Mike Richards, frankly, seems right up Brian Burke's alley. I know he's not technically the GM, but let's be real, he's the GM. The other thing was, Justin Bourne pointed out, it's really hard for a guy like Mike Richards to look good in the AHL, because even though he's probably more skilled than most of those guys, he's lost his step. He's very visibly lost his step. And the AHL is pretty close to NHL speed. And so if you're getting outskated by guys at the AHL, is Dean Lombardi really going to look at that and say, oh yeah, definitely bring him back up?
True, but at the same time, you have guys like Jeff Schultz who don't have NHL speed who are doing well down there. So there's also guys like Tom. Man, I just drew a blank. Anyway, he was just in the AHL All-Star game. But anyway, there are some guys that are able to make it in the AHL as lifers and other things like that. But I don't think that that's Richards because it doesn't seem like he tries hard enough. There are guys that try hard enough so they can hang in the AHL because they want to work hard. You very rarely see a guy just get by in the AHL for long enough just because he has skill because teams want to give up on him.
Yeah, and I don't want to trash Mike Richards, who honestly is actually a player I like a lot. But he doesn't try that hard by NHL standards. He just for the first time had a trainer this summer, which is pretty bizarre to me. He, obviously likes to have a good time. Life is pretty good for Mike Richards. He doesn't necessarily have sort of the push that some of these other guys really seem to have. But I'd love to see him back. I'm sure that if he doesn't get moved, he'll get called up for the playoffs to at least sit and watch. And then I guess we see where it goes from there. If he doesn't get moved, something has to happen this summer. He's not going to play in the AHL forever.
He will for sure be called up once the AHL playoffs are over, if the Kings are still in the playoffs.
Well, you can't call people up
yeah.
during the playoffs.
Well, you get called up. The AHL ends, and then they call up. The Kings have what they call the Black Aces, which are all the AHL guys that are done for their season, and they call them up, and they just basically sit around practicing with the Kings every day during the playoffs. So
everyone calls them Black Aces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Somebody find out why that is.
Yeah, I don't know where that term comes from. I'll point it out. We should go back to the All-Star game, though.
Okay.
I'm not done with the All-Star game.
That's fine.
Yeah, so the highlight of the weekend for me was the draft. What about for you?
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt?
Although, there were a few things in the skills competition that were super impressive. I was blown away by Kopitar in the passing drill, and then Getzlaf totally showed him up right afterward.
Oh
I
my
was
God,
like,
Getzlaf was
wow.
amazing.
Especially after watching Tavares just struggle so mightily with that, and then you saw Ryan Nugent-Hopkins struggle with it too. You were like, wow, Kopitar, that was really good. And then Getzlaf, you're like, oh my god.
Like Ryan Nugent Hopkins was almost there just to show you how hard it was.
I felt bad.
Tavares,
There was a couple people I felt bad for. I felt
Tavares,
bad for him. I felt bad for Nick Foligno as well in the one timer.
I felt that for Zemgus Girgensons,
At
who in
least,
the actual game looks so lost.
but at least he won his skating competition.
That's true.
So he has that. He's the pride of Latvia for beating a Russian.
Who most impressed you over the course of the weekend?
Well, from a skill standpoint, obviously.
Or from a personality standpoint?
Oh, I was surprised by how many people, because I'm from Southern California, I guess people just don't listen to him as much. But I will say I was a little surprised with Jonathan Taves. I didn't expect him to have as much personality as he did.
He has been on, I can tell you this as a Blackhawks fan, I've tracked his personality development. For the past about 2 years, he has been on a never-ending mission to convince people that he's fun. He hates the Captain Sirius nickname. He's hated it for as long as he's had it. Um, they called him Mr. Sirius when he's a rookie, and you can even find interviews in 2008 where he's like, I hate it when people call me Sirius. And he says it with like these shark eyes and this deadpan face. And you're like, I wonder why, dude. I wonder why. And so, like, the Olympics and Olympic training camp, and he does all these fun interviews with Blackhawks media people that, like, no one else will do, because he really wants everyone to think that he's not serious. But then you watch him play, and you watch him play the All-Star game, he was the only person trying in the first period, except for, like, kind of Aaron Ekblad, who clearly was, like, couldn't stop trying. Like,
I heard a rumor that they were telling Ekblad to calm it down. Because it's his first All-Star game, and I heard that some of the veteran players are like, dude, you don't have to try so hard.
And then they were interviewing Patrick Kane after the All-Star game, and he said that in his locker room, in the Team Polino locker room, they were going, why is Johnny going so fast? And Patrick Kane was like, that's just who he is, probably living with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he surprised me a little bit. I was glad to see the Western guys, Getzlaf and Doughty, get put on a spotlight where people could see their personality more. I know that people know a little bit about Doughty and his fun-loving nature, but I felt like Getzlaf doesn't get enough credit for being a decent guy. He gets lumped into, the Fuck the Ducks group, and like everybody hates Corey Perry. When in reality, I think Getzlaf is one of the best, like coolest players in the league.
You actually totally just stole my thunder, because I was going to say, I don't watch a ton of West Coast games, especially when I live on the East Coast, and Ryan Getzlaf blew me away.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
He's
obviously,
fantastic.
yeah, obviously you know how good of a player he
people
is.
this forever. He's my MVP vote this season through the halfway, and he's easily the most likable Duck to me. I like him even more than Solani. Like, I know that that's almost sacrilege, and people will tell me that I'm an idiot for that, but Solani never really had that much personality to begin with. He's nice.
Has personality.
I don't know.
Solani is not my favorite because I always felt like he was stealing Paul Correa's thunder. but I do like him. But obviously you know how good of a player Ryan Getzlaf is. You see him play some games. I see him play the playoffs. But the skills comp, he was unreal. He was just to watch just him by himself without thinking, well, the Ducks are a good team. They're helping him out. He's amazing. And he was hysterical. He was the funniest person on stage to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love the banter between him and Doughty. Even during the game, they were going after each other, and he even pretended to check Doughty at one point. I was like, that's awesome. And Doughty just turned around and laughed at him.
Although my favorite was Jonathan Taves pretended to slash Patrick Kane. I think he was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm being fun.
I thought it was nice of Team Foligno to all draft one of their guys as the first three.
Oh, I thought that was so over that.
Oh, I thought it was great because I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. Because of the pickup, it's like you pick your favorite people. Like if you ever play, pick up basketball or pick up hockey or pick up anything, it's like People are always picking their friends first. It just felt very real to me.
Yeah, I mean, of course you got to take care of your boys. And the first time when Eric Stahl drafted Cam Ward first, like that was cute. But now it's like, no, fuck your team. I want to see you guys like. I want to see you pick your favorites who aren't on your team. You know, I want to know who you like that plays for the other team. I want to see, you know, who you really think is better than, you know, this, that. Side note, one thing I hated about the draft is that bullshit fan vote about where Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Philip Forsberg were going. No,
Yes.
make someone stand there and be last.
Yes, I thought that was bullshit too. It's like, these are big boys. They can take it. I mean, they deal with having to get fired or traded all the time. It's not like getting picked last for an all-star game. You're already an all-star. It's really going to hurt their pride that much. So,
Also, admittedly, both Philip Forsberg and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins are guys who look like it would be really sad if they cried.
when is it not sad to watch a grown athlete cry? Like, unless they've just won something.
Well, like, you know, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins looks 12, and it's always way sadder when children cry. And Philip Forsberg has, like, those big Swedish eyes. I don't know. It just would have been really sad. So, you know, I felt less bad about it when, like, Logan Couture went last. I was like, ah, fuck Logan Couture. If Philip Forsberg had gone last, I would have felt a little bit bad about it.
Are you only saying that because Logan Couture is the ugliest guy in the league?
He's not the ugliest guy in the league, but he looks like a rat-a-tat.
That's true. Well,
Also, Logan Couture could cry about it to Drake, as opposed to Philip Forsberg, who probably doesn't listen to Drake.
okay. I will say, I think we covered this a little bit last week, but I really like Logan Couture's article that he wrote.
Yeah, it was amazing, actually. It was really
breaking
great.
down different centers. I know that we had talked about that last week, but you weren't here. And it was
Did you read
just...
Sean Avery's piece?
Yes, I did.
What did you think about that?
It was interesting. He also had a ghostwriter help him, so I don't know how much of that was actually him talking, but I know that he is a fairly articulate guy in general, so I wouldn't be surprised.
The one thing about
he still sounds like he's way too full of himself.
Well, he is. For those of you who didn't read it, Sean Avery wrote a piece for the same place that Logan Couture wrote his about how to basically get free money as an NHL player, and his answer was per diem, which is the money that you get for every day you're on the road. The team gives to you for food, whatever. His arguments includes the fact that per diem is not taxed. Per diem is taxed. So Sean Avery did a little bit admit to tax fraud, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure the feds aren't going to go after him about it.
Now, for those that don't know, all NHL players are paid in U.S. dollars, whether they're Canadian or American or European. So you all get taxed by the U.S. government. So it wouldn't matter that he's Canadian or anything like that. Just throwing that out there.
If you get taxed twice, actually. You get taxed by the state where you play, and you get taxed by the place where you live.
And it's a mess for hockey players because they play in, 5 different provinces and 20 different states. So that's becomes a problem when that's why they have professional tax people. So it's like you're paying tax dollars for each game that you play in those states too.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous.
And that's part of why there's a lot of complexity to the U.S. does taxes, obviously. But that's one of the reasons why people will take less and play in Florida rather than take more and play in, say, New York. Because Florida's tax rate is extremely low, New York's is very high.
Florida doesn't have income tax, do they?
No, Florida does not have an income tax.
Yeah, and that's another reason why some people feel that Nevada will work with Las Vegas as a team because they have the same deal. There is no income tax in Nevada. So any athlete that would play for a professional team in Las Vegas, if they lived there, wouldn't have to pay income tax. So just a little thing to think about when you think, well, who wants to go play in Las Vegas? Well, probably the same people that want to play in Florida.
Nashville also has, Tennessee has low tax rates. North Carolina has pretty low marginal tax rates. Texas has low tax rates. So, if you don't like the media and you don't want to pay Canadian taxes, some of those places are really great places to play, actually. But it's probably an underappreciated part of decision-making.
Well, we're going to move on to probably the biggest news of the week, I would say.
Oh, one last thing about the All-Star Game before we do. If you haven't seen it, and I'll link to it in a moment, the best thing actually from behind the scenes of the All-Star Game was Montreal followed Carey Price with a camera. And they're sitting on a bus, and Carey Price is looking out the window. And he goes, "Hey, look, there's a Kessel jersey." And then he waits a solid 15 seconds, and he turns to Phil Kessel and goes, "You think they're going to throw it on the ice?"
Yes, that was
And
amazing.
genuinely, it is the funniest thing you've ever seen. So props to Carey Price, who's a guy who's always had personality. He's still your mom's favorite player, as in his own words. And, I love the All-Star Game, and I'm glad we had it, and I'm glad we're going to have it again next year, and fuck the haters.
I love it too. I'm sorry that the ratings were down. I think that they did a terrible job with certain things as far as marketing it, and I hate that nobody tries at all during the actual game.
Yeah, they've got
But
to
I wish that
incentivize
they
the
would
game.
actually market the skills competition more so, because I think that more people would enjoy watching that.
Well, here's the thing about the All-Star Game itself. A lot of players said in interviews afterwards, like, that game sucked, which it did, but also that it got more intense as they were going along. So it's been a long time since we've had an All-Star Game. People have kind of forgotten. Maybe next year it won't be so bad. They'll remember to at least play at a pace. But definitely the league has to do something to make the game better, because that game was not even hockey.
No, not at all. It looked half-assed, and it was.
Yeah.
So, this week, well, before we get into that, since there's a fight right now with New Jersey, might as well mention
There
that
were fights last night in the Rangers-Habs game in the first period. My parents are not really hockey fans, and they were there. They're trying to get into it for me, which is really sweet. And they were there, and it was a 1-0 game with 4 fights in the first period, and I think they were appalled.
well, it's just hockey.
It's just hockey.
Scoreboard right now with 3 seconds left in this New Jersey-Pittsburgh game at 0-0. Carolina and the Blues are tied 2-2. And that game has a minute left in the second. So, but speaking of New Jersey and New Jersey greats, Martin Brodeur retired this week as a member of the St. Louis Blues, of course, after playing for 7 games there. Means he went to take a position in management with them, which I think is pretty ridiculous, and I kind of wish he just played out the rest of the season even as a bench warmer, and then retired, signed a 1-day contract, and retired with New Jersey. Is this just out of spite? Like, why would he do this?
Well, no. So initially I thought it was out of spite. It turned out afterwards that Lou and Marty are apparently on great terms, and that he is going to go back to New Jersey after this season. He is only staying with the Blues as their front office person for the remainder of this season. And so the speculation now is he's doing it for one last chance at a cup. Now, to get put on the cup as a...
But at the same time, why would he retire then instead of just saying, I'm going to practice with the team?
Because they don't want to carry 3 goalies. Jake Allen came back. Brian Elliott is healthy.
But he can be a healthy scratch, and he won't be on their salary.
But he takes a roster spot.
That's true. But how many people... Well, is there a limit to the amount of people you can have as healthy scratches?
I think there is a limit to the number of people you can carry on your roster.
What's that?
I think there is a limit to the number of people you can carry on your roster. And you can only have 50 active contracts. I don't know how close the Blues are to that number. I know the Avalanche are at like 49, and it's a real problem for them. So, I think that it makes sense to, if you're not going to play, and he wasn't going to play, stop playing. I think it's dumb that he signed with the Blues in the first place. If they do win the Stanley Cup, God save us all, and they petition to have him put on there as a player, I'm going to throw an unholy tantrum. To be put on the cup as a player, you have to play 50% of the regular season games, at least 1 playoff game, or the team can petition to have you put on the cup. They would have to petition for Brodeur. I will call the Hockey Hall of Fame. And
and that's a rare case. In cases where it's like that, it's like somebody will play, instead of 50, they'll play like 45, or like 45% of the games, or something like that. Because the Kings, the last couple of years, had a couple guys, like Kevin Westgarth, got on the cup a couple of years ago when they first won the cup, but he only played like 38 games that season or something. So it was just under 50%. They're like, listen, he was a healthy scratch for the majority of the season. So yeah.
Yeah, we do the same thing with Jamal Myers.
hmm So it's a case by case basis, but it's like if they've seriously contributed to your team and they're with your team the entire time, then generally that is they'll make an exception. So I threw out there on Twitter, I said, what is your most memorable or infamous Marty Brodeur moment in his career? Because obviously he's set all of the major goaltending records except for wins in the playoffs, which is still Patrick Waugh. But for a guy that's been around since 1990 draft, he's had a lot of great moments, obviously. For me, I think probably, even though he didn't win the Conn Smythe, I probably remember him in 1993, or not 93, 2003, when they beat the Ducks in Game 7 of the finals that year. That was a great run, and even though Jean-Sebastien Giguère won the Conn Smythe that year, being ridiculous for the Ducks, I felt like you could have, if it could have easily made a case for Brodeur being just as good.
Thank you for bringing up the 2003 playoffs, Dave.
Hey, no problem.
Um, I did not remember this game, but Down Goes Brown had it in his recap post today. Martin Brodeur has scored 3 career goals, and his first one was the only one he actually attempted to shoot in the net. It was in the playoffs. I don't remember what year. And watching it might be my new favorite Martin Brodeur memory. It was absolutely hysterical. One of my favorite Brodeur memories is the Canadian semifinal game from the 2002 Olympics. I think they played, I want to say Finland, I might be wrong. But it was just a great game. It was super fun. He had a great run that Olympics. Obviously, they won the gold medal. They beat the U.S. Like 5-2 in the gold medal game. And it was the first time I'd ever seen him play live. And I don't know, he was a fun guy to watch.
He was.
Especially on Olympic ice, he was a fun guy to watch.
James says that his favorite memory is him falling over trying to get his stick. I don't know which instance that was exactly, but it's always funny watching goalies fall over. And Brian says 2003 finals where that puck hit off his stick and in. Also when he beat his son in the state playoffs when he was there. I don't know exactly what he means by that. If you mean recently, because his son recently got drafted by New Jersey, obviously. So I'm not sure on that one either. But I think go ahead.
He has multiple sons.
Yeah.
I don't know which son. But apparently Brian played Brodeur's son and beat him in a game. Which is cool. Congrats, dude. It was also, actually, shout out to one Martin Brodeur moment, which was when Martin Brodeur was like the second to last pick, drafted his own son in the 2014 draft? 2013 draft, right?
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was really awesome. Like, to be able to draft your own
if I were
son.
that kid, I would fucking hate it, but as a fan, it was awesome.
I don't know why you'd really hate it. I mean, your dad's a legend.
But it's a favor. It's nepotism. And everyone knows it.
No, that's true too, but at the same time, it's still kind of cool.
Yeah, but as a fan, it was awesome.
Yes. Anyway, moving on.
He posted a picture to Twitter of like, thank you for everything, and it had him in a Team Canada sweater, him in a New Jersey Devils sweater, and him in a St. Louis Blues sweater. I was like, dude, come on,
Come
right?
on.
Like,
Come on.
Two of those things have been like identity forming, like memory shaping, huge experiences, not just for you, but for like entire fan bases. And one of them is the fucking Blues, right?
Yeah. 7 games. 7 games he played with them.
Never forget. Ah, man. I'm going to be salty about that forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Callum Mormine says, Well, he posted a video with the Mateau goal. So, yeah, Rangers beating Martin Brodeur to go to the Stanley Cup Finals in '94 is his favorite memory. So I totally understand, as a Rangers fan, why you would love that so much.
I'm sure
And, of course,
Martin Brodeur.
screening him, waving a stick that created the Sean Avery rule. Yes, that's... I was so upset that they actually made a rule against that. I was like, that's so creative. Like, why... That he wasn't touching him. There was literally nothing wrong with that play at the time. And they create a rule just so that you can't be a dick like that. Like, it wasn't even a, you know what? This rule has nothing really to do with hockey. We just don't like that you're a dick, so we're making a rule about it.
You know what? I have no problem with making a rule because someone's a dick. I have a problem with making a rule because someone's good at something. So fuck the trapezoid.
That's very true. The
and also,
NHL making a rule, just people call it the Brodeur rule, but it's the trapezoid that we have now because Brodeur was so good at handling the puck. Nowadays, though, there are a lot of goalies that are really good at handling the puck.
I hope they phase it out. I hope that eventually we can go back to goal. I don't see why not.
I don't understand why not either. Ari.
Yeah?
Ari.
Yep. What?
Either I was cutting in and out or you were cutting in and out there for a second. I don't know.
Might be me. Let me know if it happens again.
Okay.
But, Cal, as a New Jersey resident, in part, on behalf of Martin Brodeur, I would like to remind you of the Henrique goal. So you might have a Mateau goal, but it came around. Of course, the Devils didn't win, but they gave it a good shot.
You know, another thing about the Devils, and everybody will always say that he had great defense and the system in front of him, blah, blah, blah. But you, regardless of what team you're on and what system, you very rarely ever win without a good goaltending. If you look at, there's very few goaltenders that even if they went to other teams, you were like, you know what, the goaltender played absolutely no part in that team winning a championship. Almost every team, at least in the modern era, would say that at least their goaltender was competent or at least above average during the playoffs. So, and there's a reason he had the longevity he did as well. You can't just say it's because of the defense.
No, he definitely... Dude won a lot of hockey games, you know, at the end of the day.
And he has the shutout record, too, which is as impressive as anything else you'll ever do. He might not have been the greatest ever, but he was definitely in my top 5 ever.
Yeah, definitely top 5 NHL goaltenders at least.
By the way, our long-lost prodigal David Gamboa, says that as a Rangers fan, there's so many, but nothing beats seeing Fatso get pulled in the Stadium Series game. Oh.
Wow, brutal.
Brutal.
Brian says it was my internet. I apologize to everyone listening. I don't have a mic. I've got shitty internet. There's like a train in the background. I'm just the worst.
It's okay. I'm still surprised you didn't get a mic for Christmas. I thought that's where you were going with that one.
It still might be where I'm going with that one. It's been busy over here.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, not Christmas. Hanukkah. My bad.
Holidays.
Holidays.
Okay, we're coming up on a legendary Jewish holiday, Tu B'Shvat, which is my favorite holiday. So maybe I'll buy myself one to celebrate Tu B'Shvat.
Well, I don't know what that's about.
It is Jewish Arbor Day. It is a holiday to celebrate trees. It is the best holiday of all time.
All right, sweet. I like trees. They provide oxygen and shade and fruit. Cool. Speaking of trees, you know what trees have? They have leaves. And you know what?
Oh my God.
Are horrible right now? The leaves.
You know what's horrible right now? That transition.
Yes.
Oh my God. No, wait, we're not moving on yet. Really? you can't have planned that because you didn't know I was going to Jewish Arbor Day. So you just pulled that out of your ass right
I
now.
did. I totally did.
Wow. Please
I
rate
wanted to talk about the Leafs, though. They're
on
terrible.
on a scale of 1 to 10, please rate that transition on Twitter right now. Everyone.
Okay.
But the Leafs are terrible. They're objectively just awful.
I'm asking people how bad my transition was to the Leafs. Yes, they've lost, 9 in a row now? And during that time, they've barely been able to score a goal per game. Their new coach obviously isn't working out. Excuse me, they've lost one. Well, no, they've definitely lost more than one in a row. Hold on a second. Did they win one and I just missed it? I don't think they did.
I don't think they've won a game yet. No, they went to shootout.
Oh, okay,
So that's
what
why
it was.
it's not showing up. Yeah, the NHL counts losing in a shootout as not losing, which is fucking
Yeah,
bullshit.
they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 8 in a row. 8 in a row. Obviously, the Carlisle getting fired wasn't necessarily their biggest problem, or just they don't have the personnel put in place for the system that they're running right now, which means that maybe they just need a new coach and new players. At this point, I mean, what can you do? They have a lot of decent players.
I haven't
Objectively,
looked.
they just don't seem to play well together. Is Peter Horacek just terrible, or is it just that when they brought him in, he just doesn't have the players for the type of system he wants to run?
I mean, frankly, I hate the Leafs. I hate how much attention they get. I hate their shitty team. I don't like most of their players. So I haven't spent a lot of time watching or analyzing their faults. I don't think they're lose 8 games in a row bad. I also don't think they were win 10 games in a row good at the beginning of the season. So for some reason, things seem to go more so for the Leafs than for other teams in cycles. I'm going to pull up some stats here in a minute and see what we can see sort of about their last 8 or 10 games.
By the way, I just want to point out that Twitter right now is totally on my side for that transition from Arbor Day to the Leafs.
Okay, but everyone on Twitter is terrible.
Wow.
I don't like any of these
That's
people.
how you pander to the audience right there. Tell them they're all terrible.
Brian
I
said
love
it
all
was
of you, by the way. Thank you, audience.
Brian said it was -5 out of 10, so Brian is the only person I love.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Brian is the only one of you I still like.
Well, Chris also said he wasn't listening, but it was probably as bad as the Leafs. So you might have 2 people.
Great. Me and Brian and Chris, the real team of people to take your terrible lines down, since Chris makes worse jokes than I do. My jokes are pretty bad, too.
Wow.
He's not listening. It's fine. I can say
Ripping
whatever I want.
That's true. He's not listening, so it doesn't matter if you rip on him. By the way, your internet is almost as bad as my transition.
But neither of us are as bad as the Leafs.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just, you know what, Leafs fans. Okay, so like the classic example of this is Steve Dangle. Fuck Steve Dangle. I am so sick of his overdramatic bullshit every time the Leafs lose a game. Your team sucks. Of course they're going to lose a lot of games.
I don't know if you've watched Steve Dangle, but I've been watching him since pretty much the beginning of his vlogging, and he's pretty much been overdramatic about everything his entire career. So I don't think that's anything new.
This year, I watched him. This is probably my 3rd year of watching him, so I don't go as far back as you do. But there used to be like real analysis, and like, you know, I know it sucks to root for a team that loses a lot, and I'm sure being a Leafs fan is really emotionally trying. But his videos are just now like just craziness, you know, and there's no like. I think he said it himself. There's no analysis. It's just voodoo. It's like, all right, no, I don't need to watch voodoo.
Well, at the same time, from his perspective, I would say that when your team is this bad? Like, what more can you say about them just being bad? Like, how much analysis can you give to a team after they've lost 8 in a row? So I get a little bit where he's coming from, and I think that maybe he's just going through a rough patch in the same way his team is.
um, this is why I admire Sabres fans. Sabres fans are so great. They just they know their team sucks. They watch it. They're like, yeah, our team sucks. There's no drama. I guess at the least you're not rebuilding. There's no clear plan for the team, but
Well, since there's no clear plan for the team,
yeah, you have
okay.
to think that Brendan Shanahan has a plan.
Yes, I do. But at the same time, he's never been in this position before, so that's the thing. Like, most of the great GMs or presidents of clubs, just in general, have some sort of experience or upbringing, or they've been under somebody and had the tutelage from a guy that had experience somewhere else, or something like that. Like, when you just bring in a guy, even a guy, if you think that they're great, like Steve Yzerman's been the exception to the rule for the most part, even though he still hasn't necessarily won a championship in Tampa Bay. I think that he's moving in the right direction with that team.
He has drafted amazingly well. Shout out Steve Yzerman. Can you give me 1 second?
Very few people like that. I mean, even when you look at guys that you say, you know what, those guys are really good at what they do, most of them have been under somebody else. I mean, your GM is Stan Bowman, whose dad is Scotty Bowman. It's like, my team is Dean Lombardi, who failed in San Jose. Like, these guys still, even though they're professionals at the highest level, sometimes you still have to learn things. Like, nobody ever stops learning. You get better as you go, especially when it comes to things like a general manager or just management position in general. You can get better at what you do, and I think that I'm still curious as to see what Brandon Shanahan's going to bring to them, because you can be really hockey smart, but that doesn't mean you have great management skills. Sure, I mean, he did study a little bit under like Ken Holland and stuff when he was in Detroit, but that was as a player, not as a manager. We'll see. I don't have anything against the Leafs in general. I think it's hilarious that the media blows them up so much, but we have a question from Dave, who's not here today because he's sick, Dave Ball. He says, besides your own team, who do you want to win the Cup this year? Well, that's a loaded question, Dave.
I assume it's the Chicago Blackhawks.
For me? No, I would say Washington Capitals. I would love to see Ovechkin win a Cup someday. If the Kings didn't win a Cup, I think it would be great for that franchise. They've never won a Cup. And just Ovechkin's so much fun to watch. He loves the game. So I would not mind seeing him win a Cup.
I guess that would be cool for me since I live here. Who would I like to see win a Cup besides the Blackhawks? Fuck, none of you. I hate everyone.
That's fine. You already established that earlier since you said you hate all our Twitter followers. So.
I do. I hate all our fans. Hold on, let me look at the playoff standings right now and see who I would want to win.
You can't... Well, anyway, moving on. Nearly asked.
Anaheim. I guess San Jose. San Jose could win a Cup, I guess.
Well, they're another team that's never won.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, Nelly asks, who's getting to the Hall of Fame that no one expects? Whispers Thornton, though. I don't necessarily know that Thornton isn't getting to the Hall of Fame. I think he's right on the bubble right now. He's one of the greatest passers of his generation. He's won an MVP. He's done nothing but make everyone else around him better his entire career. You've heard things like the Thornton effect about players that played with him and went other places, Jonathan Cheechoo, and then just completely failed. So, and Chris brings up also he's the only player to win MVP in the year he was traded. So that's also very true. The year that he won MVP, he was with Boston, got traded to San Jose. Joe Thornton, in my opinion, is right on that bubble, and I think he's currently third or fourth among active players in scoring. So I don't necessarily. If I'm going to ask the question, who's getting in the Hall of Fame that no one really expects? I don't think that that's something that happens anymore, honestly. I don't think you get into the Hall of Fame without people expecting you to. Maybe.
For me, I'd say Joe Thornton isn't even on the bubble. I'd say he's surefire, no question, Hall of Famer. You know, maybe not first ballot, but Joe Thornton's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right now he's currently 37th all time in scoring.
And he's not done.
Yeah. So.
I mean, he's won, what, 2 gold medals? 1 gold medal?
At least 1, maybe 2.
Yeah. No, Joe Thornton's amazing.
Maybe Henrik Sedin would be somebody I might think. His career totals are not that great, but at the same time he's won an MVP and he's played in an era that is very difficult to score compared to some of the other guys. So aside from that, I can't think of too many guys that are on the bubble that are active right now. At least if you're talking about people that are retired, maybe I still think Jeremy Roenick's going to get in.
Really?
Even though he's kind of on the bubble. I think he will someday, yeah.
I would say Jeremy Roenick falls outside Hall of Fame for me.
Okay. I think he's on the bubble there with a couple other Americans like Phil Housley.
Yeah, I'd probably put Housley in first.
But Jeremy Roenick's 41st all-time in point scoring, and he's scored 500 goals. So
that's so weird. I can't believe Jeremy Roenick is that high in all-time
would
points.
you? Okay, I'm going to ask you this question: would you put Daniel Everson in the Hall of Fame?
No. Well,
because he is below Roenick in numbers.
Not on the basis of numbers. I would not put Alfredsson in the Hall of Fame. You know, I can see how Ottawa fans would make like a Matt Sundin argument, but for me, no, I wouldn't put Alfredsson there. I'd put a Ginla in.
Yeah, well, but Ginla is barely above Alfredsson, and he's below Jeremy Roenick in scoring right now.
Yeah, I feel like Ginla has more.
Ginla does have more goals than Roenick, but he doesn't have more points.
Yeah, that's why I brought him up, as I figured he was probably pretty close to comparable.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not done, but he's on the tail end of his career. But I don't know.
Hey, really quick, sorry to interrupt, but
no worries.
I have somebody knocking on my front door for some reason. So give me 1 minute. I'll be right back.
All right, I'll monologue for a minute. I made Dave monologue for a minute while I let someone in my front door, so it's only fair that I return the favor. You can ask me questions. If you want to ask me about who I hate the most or which Dave I hate the most, happy to answer those. Maybe right now we should talk about that Kings game. The Kings played the Blackhawks the other night. It fucking sucked. West Coast games always suck. They go so late when you live on the East Coast. So I went to bed, and after I went to bed, they tied it. Fucking, I don't even want to say Dustin Brown's name, Dustin Brown, and then they won. The Blackhawks have got to pull it together in third period leads. We are like 20-0-0 when we go into the third period with a lead, and if we go in tied, we're like 50-50, basically. That's pretty unacceptable for a National Hockey League team. Megan suggested that the team I most want to see win, besides the Blackhawks, is the Red Wings. That is some fucking lies and slander, and I am planning to take Megan to court for it, presumably in the jurisdiction of Illinois, where they'll rule in my favor. Cal says I want to see the Rangers win because I want to see some success at MSG. It's just not going to replace. It's not going to replace the Knicks in my heart. They never will. Millie says that I want the Sharks to win. I'd like to see the Sharks win. I'd like to see Joe Thornton win a cup. We're talking about teams that I would like to see win.
Well,
and
sorry about that. Since when does the mailman show up at your door at 6 p.m.?
That's pretty weird. Oh, we have not yet done our tennis cast. That's what I should have monologued about.
Well, I'm not here, so.
Well, now you are.
You know. How do you guys feel about Kimmo Timonen maybe coming back? Did you already talk about that?
No.
I don't really think he's going to make a difference, honestly. Like, that's sad to say. I think he's just old and past his prime.
Also, the Flyers are just too far out.
For the Flyers to push them in the playoffs anyway.
I mean, basically, we're at the point in the season where if you're not one or two spots out of a playoff seat right now, you're just not making the playoffs. Philly is two spots out. They're fourth in the wild card race. They are 3 points behind Florida, who is first in the wild card race, but they played 4 more games. You're not making the playoffs, Philly. You're not making the playoffs. I'm thrilled that he can come back. Just no one wants to end their career on a scare like that. But honestly, I did not expect he would ever play hockey again. So I'm thrilled on that note.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he does come back and he's able to play if he still wants to. But at the same time, I just don't think he's going to be very effective.
I don't know how he'll be as a player. I guess we'll find out. I think Philly needs more than that. Philly needs a lot of help.
By the way, I don't know if you addressed it, but Megan said that Chris Osgood is somebody she thinks might sneak into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, no, I had not seen that yet.
In my opinion, if Rogie Vachon didn't make it into the Hall of Fame back in his day, when he was one of the greatest goaltenders ever of his era, I don't know that Chris Osgood, who wasn't one of the greatest of his era but just had good numbers, will make it in. So, that's kind of hard to say, but he is a guy that has, 400 wins, which there aren't many people. I think there's a list of like 10 that have done that. So, it is impressive, but at the same time, his longevity is impressive, but his numbers were never impressive, even though he played on some good teams.
Chris Osgood, though, does have like a Hall of Fame moment, which I think is something the voters consider, which is like one moment where you're like, hockey history moment. And I think that's something Drew McGinley has. He assisted, obviously, on the gold medal goal and the whole 2004 playoffs that some players with comparable numbers won't have. And Chris Osgood has a Hall of Fame moment in the Patrick Waugh fight.
One of the greatest fights ever.
Maybe the greatest fight ever.
That's tough. What is the greatest fight ever?
I don't really like fights. Not, I don't know.
For entertainment value, or you just don't like them?
I don't find them overly entertaining in general, and I worry about head injuries. And after a fight, it takes so long to get play started again. But the one kind of fight I love, which is sort of my id speaking, I love goalie fights. Real goalie fights, not Ray Emery bullshit. But, so for me, it doesn't get any better than Patrick Waugh fighting Chris Osgood or Dominik Hasek. Those are just the best.
Back to our last point, Dave is asking, when do you think Big E gets in? That would be Eric Lindros.
I don't know if he does.
I don't know if he does either. He's another guy. I'd be kind of surprised at this point if he does, if he hasn't got in already. Megan says McCarty and Lemieux is the best fight ever.
That was a good fight.
That was a good fight. But that's the same... I mean... I think if you go like way back in the day, I know that I go way too far back, but the St. Patrick's Day fight that ended up getting Rocket Richard suspended for the season and caused a riot in Montreal. I mean, that's probably one of the most legendary fights.
Yeah, I mean, starting a riot.
I can't think of too many. There was the Russia versus Canada fight in international play where they suspended it and both teams got tossed out of the tournament. That was pretty legendary.
Yeah.
But Buffs Buffet says, look up Hextall's life. Hextall was pretty good at fighting.
Brendan Shanahan had a couple of fights that I liked. He fought Brashear, Probert, Deadmarsh, the Adam Deadmarsh fight. I don't know.
Bob Probert had some great fights with people.
Yeah.
Him and Chris Nealon. I don't mind fighting, but I don't really think that it adds that much to the experience of the game for me in general. Unless it's a very physical game against people. Like, I don't like fights just for the sake of fighting, generally. I like fights that set some sort of precedence in the game or provide some sort of fuel for something in the future or something like that. Like for me, like when a game just gets out of hand and everybody's fighting, I don't necessarily love it.
Neely brought up a great point, which is the Jamie Benn Joe Thornton fight. And I think that basically gets at what I like in fights. I only like fights when they're star players. I don't want to see fucking Brandon Bollig fight John Scott. I don't care. I want to see, you know,
So you
Mike
liked it like when Dustin Brown and Shane Doan fought a couple years ago or something like that?
Yeah, that was great. Or when
Like
Mike
team
Richards
captains.
fought Logan Spur. Every fight Joe Thornton has ever had, I have loved, except for when he fought Jonathan Taves, which was not good. Jonathan Taves clearly had a head injury, but
Buffs Buffet says, "Can I change that to the Milbury incident?" For those that don't know, Milbury, Mike Milbury, as coach of Boston, one time actually went into the crowd and started beating people with a shoe. So, yeah, that's pretty memorable in and of itself as well. It was a great fight.
wait, if he's gonna say the Milbury fight, then I'm gonna say John Tortorella in the dressing room is my favorite fight.
Well, you know, Buff says that doesn't count but the entertainment value is top notch. I think, well, hockey isn't entertainment. I mean, we watch sports for entertainment, so fighting is part of the entertainment. Now, while generally that entertainment shouldn't go into the stands to further entertainment, I don't know. I wouldn't say. I mean, fighting is part of the entertainment, so I don't really mind that. But yeah, from an outsider's point of view, I don't know about the guy getting hit with a shoe if it was entertaining for him, though. Neely asks, most disappointing players this season, who's not living up to their potential? Well, there's quite a
Mike
few.
Richards is an easy answer.
What's that?
Mike Richards is an easy answer.
He's not in the league anymore, so that's not a fair answer.
You know, before the Blackhawks Kings game the other night, our pregame show was trashing Jeff Carter's season, and then he went and scored 2 goals on us. So
I don't really understand how you can trash his season in comparison to his recent seasons. I mean, he's not terrible this season, so he's top 50 in the league in scoring. He's right next to Martin St. Louis and, Blake Wheeler and a bunch of other guys that are top-notch guys. It's like, yeah, he's not a 40-goal scorer anymore. I'm sorry. He doesn't play in a system like he did in Philadelphia where he could rack up those points, but that doesn't mean he's not still one of the best two-way players in the league.
do you think Jeff Carter is that good of a two-way player?
I do. Watching him night in and night out, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't follow him watch him night in, night out.
For a
But
while, okay, at the start of the season when that 70s line was all together, it was something ridiculous. Like, they had scored, they'd only allowed, I think combined they were minus, they'd only allowed like 2 goals when that line was out on ice for the first like 10 or 12 games of the season, something stupid. And then they kind of got broken up and stuff. But him and Toffoli are both really good defensively as well as offensively, and people don't necessarily see that all the time. Pearson still needs some work, and they kind of leave Pearson out there with his speed to, open it up a little bit when he's healthy. But yeah, I think that's something that's very underrated about Jeff Carter.
I've noticed that Toffoli is a good defensive player, but I wouldn't have necessarily said Jeff Carter was that good. So, interesting.
Yeah. As far as people that I think are disappointing this season,
Well, Ryan O'Reilly has been incredibly disappointing.
well, that entire team has been incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. Landeskog's having a pretty bad season, too.
I was going to say, well, not only him, but Nathan McKinnon as well.
Yeah, sophomore slump, though. I've got a little bit more space for that. Tomas Hertl hasn't had a very good season.
No, and he got sent back down to the minor leagues as well.
Just for conditioning, basically. He's back up. That was for the All-Star break.
Yeah. It's kind of hard for me to pick a disappointing player. There's a lot of guys. I don't really think about a lot of other teams and how disappointing their players are. So to answer that right off the top of my head, I'm not really sure. Maybe a guy like Miko Koivu in Minnesota, but Minnesota in and of itself has been kind of disappointing.
No
And for a
kidding.
first-line guy, he hasn't really done as much as I would have liked to see from somebody like that. So, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. Very difficult. Corey Schneider in New Jersey has kind of a disappointing season. I'd put him maybe on that list. Toronto, obviously, everyone is disappointing. Yeah, tough. Good question, Neely. Good question. I don't know if there are players that have disappointed me that much in Chicago. There are players who I knew were going to suck, and they suck. There are players that have surprised me by being better than I thought they'd be, but no one's really disappointed me. Dan Carcillo sucks. Michael Roosevelt sucks. Chris Versteeg has been better than we thought he'd be. Obviously, Trevor Van Riemsdyk was a revelation. David Rundblad has been absolutely fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
He didn't really, at the beginning of the season, he didn't have a shot to play. He's finally gotten a chance to play. The past 3 or 4 games, we put him back on the right side. He's a right shot naturally, and we had him on the left side. Or he's a right D naturally. Means he shoots left, I think. And since we put him back on his natural side, he's had like 3 goals and a couple assists.
Oh, you know who's disappointed me? Now I think about it, Jakob Silfverberg of Anaheim. Like when he came over in the Bobby Ryan trade, a lot of people thought that he was going to be a lot better than he is. And somebody that lives in Anaheim, I go to a lot of Ducks games. He's just not panned out the way that they thought he would. Even though Anaheim's still winning, he is. I think Ottawa definitely has won that trade so far with Bobby Ryan.
Yeah. Who else came over in that trade?
I think a draft pick.
Okay. Let us know.
I think actually Marc-Andre Vlasic is kind of disappointing me this season as well in the Pacific. He's not having the near Norris Trophy type of year that he had last year.
Oh, Megan and Neely both made a great point that there is someone on the Blackhawks who has totally disappointed me, Andrew Shaw, and he is so disappointing that I forgot about him. He's been horrible this season. Absolutely atrocious. Thank you, Neely and Megan. And Dave, I do agree. I've been watching a fair number of Sharks games, partly because Jess and Neely are terrible influences, and partly just because I like Joe Thornton and I like their game. And I have him on at least one of my fantasy teams. He's been good, but not like, I don't know, he hasn't been great.
No. Somebody knocking on your door now? Sorry. Anyway. Well, I don't know where Ari went, but it sounded like she was getting somebody knocking on her door as well. Dave says, Jakub Voracek has been disappointing because he should be 10 points ahead of everybody. Listen, Dave, I don't want to hear it. When you have the Art Ross trophy leader right now, you're not allowed to talk about disappointing, because that will never happen to anybody in the current King system.
Sorry?
It sounded like you had somebody at your door as well.
Yeah, I just got Indian food delivered to me by my roommates, who are great roommates.
Way to go, roommates.
Wow.
So, I'm going to bring this down just a notch. Oh, Buffs Buffet says Pavlik's been disappointing since his hot streak. Well, you know what? You have Michael Hutchinson, so it's not like you're that disappointed with your goaltending this season or the fact that you're in a playoff spot right now.
Frankly, you can't be disappointed in Pavlik. He had a hot streak.
Yes, and nobody expected that.
Yeah, that is by far exceeding expectations for the existence of Pavlik. So going back to what he normally is not disappointing.
I'm going to give you a guy that's been real disappointing, Nail Yakupov.
Oh, he has been, that is the winning answer. He has been very disappointing.
13 points this season, minus 23. Wow.
He was bad last season, too. And that was like, oh, sophomore slump, sophomore slump. We're running out of time here, Yakupov.
He's going to get traded, I think. Anyway, I wanted to bring up something since you're here today.
Mm-hmm.
As a Blackhawks fan, this week we found out that Stan Mikita is suffering with dementia.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. He is the Blackhawks' all-time leader in scoring, and he is a great player all time. He is the first player to ever win the Art Ross Hart Trophy and Lady Byng all in one season.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is a guy. Actually, back in the day when he joined the league, he was really chippy, and he routinely would be racking up like 100 penalty minutes a season. And his coach wasn't too happy about it, but it wasn't until his daughter brought it up and said that he needed to tone it down. Yeah, his daughter actually like questioned his style of play, and so he promised her that he would become a cleaner player. And then he did. And the season after he promised that, he only had 6 minor penalties all season. He won Lady Byng, Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy all in one season. So he was the first player to do that. I think Gretzky's done it as well. But obviously, like I said, he's the all-time leader for the Blackhawks in scoring, and one of the truly great players. Also, one of the first. Even though he was born in Slovakia, but he moved to Canada when he was 8 years old, and he played nationally for Canada. But when he went to Czechoslovakia anyway, he was still revered there, just as a great ambassador to game for Czechoslovakia before they split up. And he was one of the first great European-born players, even though he considered himself Canadian once he moved over here as a kid.
Stan Mikita is one of the reasons that there is a limit on how curved your stick can be. Stan Mikita played with an incredibly curved stick, just like ridiculous. And Bobby Hull had a very curved stick at the time too. And the two of them were so successful that, sort of like introducing the trapezoid to limit Martin Brodeur, the NHL limited the curvature of the stick. He also was, when he played, a huge sponsor of hockey for everyone. He promoted like a deaf hockey league and a vision impaired hockey league. He had a huge impact on the community in Chicago. He's extremely well loved. You know, I assume he won't be doing it anymore, but for a long time he would go to Blackhawks games, and you could go up to him in the second intermission or the first intermission, and there'd be a line just down the hallway in the 200s level. Like, what are people waiting for? They're waiting for Stan Mikita. Came to lots of games. He was just always friendly, great guy. He was so excited when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup in 2010. My mom, as I said earlier on the podcast, my parents aren't really hockey fans, but my mom did live in Chicago in some of the 1960s, 1970s, and he was her favorite player. And when I became a hockey fan, that's the reason I became a Blackhawks fan, because my mom said, well, you know, I used to root for the Blackhawks. All right, well, I don't have another team to root for. And so Stan Mikita had 2 generations of my family been sort of a legend. And I hope that, you know, we don't have a lot of details about his condition. It's incredibly sad. For anyone who has a loved one suffering a degenerative brain condition, degenerative, any kind of condition, you know, all of our thoughts are with him and his family.
Yeah, for sure. And the dementia that he has is the same thing that Robin Williams was getting, which some people feel is the reason that he ended up committing suicide, because it's basically like Alzheimer's and Parkinson mixed into one. So this is not something pretty and not something that can be cured. It's really unfortunate, but we wish him all the best, and hopefully, I mean, maybe there's something that can be done that we just don't know with stem cells, like with Gordie Howe or something else, but I hope that it doesn't affect him too greatly throughout the next few years. I don't know how long this type of thing lasts. But yeah, we just found that out today, so unfortunate, but wishing him the best. And they say he's in poor health right now. I don't know how poor that is, but obviously he was a great player and a lot of respect from a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, obviously haven't seen a ton of hockey in the 1960s, but it seems like he's consensus one of the best players there. He's one of the numbers the Blackhawks have retired, and you know, I don't go to a lot of Blackhawks games anymore, but we'll miss him now that he's not there.
But for those that don't know, I mean, he's a guy that scored over a point per game in his career. He had 541 goals, 1,467 points. He's 14th all time in scoring, right ahead of Teemu Selanne. Uh, he's ahead of guys like Robitaille, Brett Hall. He's ahead of Modano, Guy Lafleur. He's had a lot of great players that he's yeah. So
He's got a statue outside the United Center. If I'm not incorrect, I believe his was the first number we ever retired.
as it should have been.
Well, I mean, that's pretty crazy to think. He retired in like 1970 something, or 1980 maybe.
1980.
Oh, nice. I nailed it. He retired in 1980. The Blackhawks have been in organization since what, 1928?
24.
24?
No,
It took us
25.
25. It took us that long to retire a number. That's how special Stan Mikita was to this team.
Well, for those that don't know, also, like not, my team was shitty for forever, so it's not like I'm shitting on your team. But for those that don't know, the Blackhawks were terrible for a long time. The Blackhawks, actually, here's a little bit of trivia for you guys. The Blackhawks won a cup in 1938, and I believe it was the first time that a team in the NHL had won a cup with an American coach and primarily American players. The owner at the time for the Blackhawks was big into promoting American hockey, so he pushed really hard for that. But unfortunately, the American game of hockey wasn't as good then, so the Blackhawks really struggled for the most part for a lot of years because their owner was big into American players. So a lot of Canadian teams throughout the years, or Detroit during the 50s, would constantly be beating them. In the 60s, the early 60s, they won in 1961. And that was kind of an upset at the time because Toronto was really good. Montreal had been really good too. The 50s, like I said, were dominated by Detroit, and so Detroit was kind of falling off of their dynasty at the time. But they still had Gordie Howe in the production line. So them winning in 61 was not expected at the time, even though they were pretty good. But then they were good throughout the 60s, but just never won. They went to several different cups during the 60s and just never won again. So, but that 61 was just kind of a surprise because then in 62, 63, and 64, Toronto won all of those. And that's the only cup that Mikita ever won. And Chicago never won again until 2010. So it was a really big deal at the time.
In fact, Stan Mikita, as we have said previously on this podcast, Stan Mikita played his entire career with the Blackhawks. Only 3 players had longer careers with one team.
And they're all with Detroit.
They are all with Detroit. It was Yzerman and Delvecchio and someone else, maybe Lidstrom.
Lidstrom, yeah, it is.
Yeah, he's just a hero. A lot of teams have lost players that were in, you think about Jean Beliveau in Montreal, and maybe we obviously have never been as successful as Montreal, but maybe Stan Mikita is a little bit like Jean Beliveau to us.
Well, just because you're not as successful doesn't mean you don't mean as much to a team. It's like Teemu just retired from the Ducks, and while he wasn't with the Ducks as long, and he wasn't like only a Duck, that doesn't mean he didn't matter just as much, and he's the first guy to get his number retired by the Ducks. That doesn't mean that you don't matter as much to your fan base just because you're not as successful. Nobody's ever going to be as successful as Jean Beliveau. Nobody's ever won 17 Stanley Cups between playing and managing as he did. It's like you can't compare somebody being as successful as meaning as much to a team. I would say that Mario Lemieux might mean more to his team than anybody else in the history of hockey because he not only won cups there, but he bought the team and brought them from bankruptcy and from moving,
Mario Lemieux is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, even though they've only won 3 cups, I would say that you could make an argument Lemieux has meant more to his team in the history of their franchise than almost anybody else in the history of any other franchise. So I don't think success necessarily means that you mean as much from an emotional level.
Until the 2010 team, I have a hard time thinking of a player that anyone in Chicago loved more than Jean Beliveau. Than Stan Mikita. That's a Freudian slip right there.
There's a lot of great players you had. I mean, you guys went to the Cup Finals in '92.
Yes, we got swept by the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's Speaking of Mario Lemieux.
Mm-hmm. And that was a great team. You had Jeremy Roenick and Steve Larmer and Ed Balfour and all different Tony Amonte, all different kinds of guys. So
Tony Amonte, I don't think was on that team.
was he not? When did
No,
he?
Chris Chelios was though.
Tony Amonte went from the Rangers to Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't think he was there in 1992.
Okay. Tony Amonte was a rookie in '91 with the Rangers. So yeah, you're right. He probably didn't go over yet. And I know that because the Kings played the Rangers in an outdoor game in Las Vegas in '91. So he would have been a rookie in '90, I guess. Because I remember Bob Miller calling that game. I think. Anyway, I'm rattling. This week. Oh, by the way, Pittsburgh just tied the game with like 3 minutes left against New Jersey. And Carolina and the Blues are going overtime. Nashville and
Stop giving the Blues fucking points.
I'm sorry.
Damn it.
Nashville and Colorado are tied 0-0 right now in the first. This week, we have some other news. Obviously, the World Cup of Hockey. I don't know what you make of it. I'm not opposed to it, but at the same time, I am not a huge fan of this like 23 and under team and the European conglomerate. It's just...
Yeah, I think that part of the reason that I love international hockey is for the rivalries. You know, there's no rivalry with an under-23 team. And who am I supposed to root for if Brandon Saad is playing on the under-23 team and, you know, Patrick Kane is playing on the USA team and they play each other? What, am I supposed to be invested in that? Like, and I'm sure Europeans feel the same. You know, if you're a Slovakian, are you supposed to root for Andrzej Kopitar? Like, no, why? What?
Yeah, and another thing about this under-23 team, it's like, they say it's the North American team. We all know that's BS. It's the U.S. and Canada team. Like, nobody from Mexico is getting on this team or anything. So
they would be my favorite player of all time.
Yes, exactly.
I will throw that gauntlet down right now. If a player from Mexico ever makes an international combined team, I will buy their jersey.
And the thing is, the European conglomerate's going to be Slovakia and Andrzej Kopitar, and then maybe Leon Draisaitl or like some random, you know, Matt Zuccarello.
Yeah, I was gonna say Matt Zuccarello will be on it.
It's pretty much going to be Slovakia and like 5 people. So, and they're putting ads on the jerseys. It's such a cash grab. It's not that I don't like watching hockey that's at the highest level, which this is all going to be a bunch of all-star teams from these countries, at least the 6 major countries plus. But when you have a 23 and under team, you're still going to miss out on guys like Nathan McKinnon or Eichel or McDavid. A lot of guys are good before they're 23. Like, this isn't like a full-on bring your best from Canada or U.S., which I think just doesn't help the Canada or U.S. win. So this is an NHL event where you're basically handicapping your 2 most prominent teams in Canada and the U.S. by forcing them to make 3 teams out of 2 countries.
I will say that if the under-23 team ever won, I would just have a fucking riot. It'd be amazing.
I think that
but they're never going to win.
Well, okay, I think they can beat Slovakia / conglomerate.
Have a little faith. Have a little faith in the conglomerate. Also, I'm really concerned about where Nathan Walker is going to play.
Well, he can't play, can he?
Well, I think that Nathan Walker should be on the international team. He's obviously not a good enough hockey player.
It's not an international team.
I know, so I'm worried about Nathan Walker.
Well, he's playing in the AHL right now. I don't think he would even make the squad anyway, but
I know, and disregarding the fact that he is in the AHL. I think that
I heard he's doing okay though.
Yeah, I think he's
They just had a Nathan Walker bobblehead night where the bobblehead had a kangaroo in it, I think, so.
Yeah, it was super cute. It was really cute.
For those of you that don't know, Nathan Walker is the first Australian drafted by an NHL team. He's currently playing for the Hershey Bears. He is Washington property.
I like you said property. Yes, he belongs to me.
Hmm. Paul says that this World Cup is too North America centric. Megan says as long as NHLers are getting play in the Olympics, she doesn't care. And Eric says I'm willing to give it some time, but I hope it doesn't take over the Olympics. I completely agree. I still love the Olympics, and I don't ever want to see NHL players not in the Olympics. I think that Olympics should be the pinnacle of athletics for most sports, and there's only a couple sports where that doesn't seem to be the case. As far as from a country standpoint, one is soccer, and there's probably a couple other sports that I can't think of right now, but honestly, thank you, Eric, for the video of Respect My Conglomerate. I'm sorry I used that word. Actually, I'm not sorry. I like the word. It's a good word. Anyway, I agree. I think that this is an NHL deal, and so some of you know that I write weekly or bi-weekly for Last Word on Sports. One of the other writers for that website lives in Europe, and he is a Latvia fan. He's also a Buffalo fan because Zemgus and Ted Nolan coaches Latvia. But he's constantly giving us updates on KHL and other stuff going on there. He said that the Latvian head of their international hockey department has claimed that they will not send any players to this World Cup event if this is something that's going to happen, because they think it's a joke. So I don't know about other countries in Europe. Obviously, they have the big six teams that have committed to this through the IIHL. But if this European team is the result of other countries taking this as a joke, it makes me wonder like how good this competition is actually going to be, or how many players will sit out because they're like, fuck it, we already got the World Championship and the Olympics.
Yeah, that's my question. How are you going to make players care about this? Like, you can't even get Crosby to go to the All-Star game.
And you can't get half the players. I understand that the World Championship takes place during the NHL playoffs, so it is a little bit difficult there. But the World Championship already matters so little to North Americans. Do you think that North Americans are really going to be that intrigued by a World Cup of hockey? If they're not already intrigued by the World Championships, then why would they care about the World Cup? Like,
the World Cup is literally the World Championships with a dumber format and less history.
Yeah.
I'm pretty skeptical. You know, I don't know. I'm not basically, like you said, I'm not excited, but I'm also not like willing to hate on it until I see it and hate it. At which point I probably will hate on it.
Brian says, I doubt I'll watch it intently. It's a joke already. And Dave says he hates that there's jersey advertisements. I, for one, am not a huge hater of jersey advertisements, but I'm also a soccer fan. And I will watch NASCAR or Formula One or other things where there are already advertisements on jerseys. I think that if it's done properly and doesn't distract from the actual design of a jersey, that it's not that big of a deal. I think the biggest problem in North Americans' viewpoint is they're just not used to it the way Europeans are. And Europeans for a long time have done advertisement jerseys. So it's not that big of a deal. It's just that here in North America, I think that you find a lot more people buying jerseys.
Well, here's the thing.
So maybe that's why. Like, jerseys here are a big deal. They sell a lot of merchandise, and people don't want to, like... But people already buy stuff with other logos on it. It's like, you'll buy a bag with Louis Vuitton, or you'll buy clothes with Calvin Klein on it. You'll
That's
buy
different.
all the...
Dude, that is so different.
Is it really, though?
Yeah, because the symbol there is a status symbol. That because the bag has Louis Vuitton on it, it represents wealth and it represents class and an idea. You know, a McDonald's logo on a King's practice jersey does not represent wealth and class, except for the owners. Here's the thing for me. We've got two things going on here that are causing a huge cognitive dissonance. On one hand, the NHL pushes so hard the hockey is a way of life, and hockey fans are like this, and your team is your religion. And teams push it too. If you look at the advertising that Chicago does, for example, you know, one goal, like believe in the team, like believe in the city, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they push push it the same way the Raptors push We the North in Toronto. Um, and that's fine, you know. I buy some of that hype. I really do identify with my team and identify with my fan base. But you cannot have the, you know, we're hockey fans, we do crazy things like, you know, we're a special kind of person narrative, and then put jerseys on the logo. Or, sorry, put ads on the jersey. Like, it doesn't make sense.
I can see that viewpoint.
And I don't like how they look. I think the Kings practice jerseys look horrible. The Kings practice jerseys, if you haven't seen them, have a yellow M on them.
Yeah.
For McDonald's.
Well, Toronto has that too.
Oh, I didn't know. See, I hate Toronto, so I didn't know.
Well, they don't have an M. I think they have they have some other logo on it. But yeah, there are practice jerseys with the logo on it. Megan says it doesn't take place, and she said it takes place before the season starts. No player is going to focus on that over the start of the regular season. I don't know about that, but I could see what you're saying.
I don't understand why general managers have okayed this, or like ownership. Who wants their player going to get injured in some fucking like town in Norway before the season even starts? At least the World Championships, if you get injured, you have the whole summer to recover.
Eric says that he feels that since it's at the start of the season or right before, that people will be hungry enough to watch hockey that they'll tune in. I can kind of see that. It's unlike the World Championships. People don't watch the World Championships because it happens during our playoffs for NHL. So if you're making that argument, I can see what you're saying, because people in North America will tune in, but once again, this alienates Europeans, whereas vice versa with the World Championships. So what happens is, in the World Championships, for those that don't know, it usually happens in the NHL playoffs. By then, the KHL and the Liga playoffs and other things like that over there are already done. So the World Championships is huge in Europe, and that's why a lot of the European teams tend to do so well. It's because they get a lot of players from Europe that have already finished their regular seasons over there. So his argument, it looks like, is because the KHL starts earlier than the NHL or things like that, they would not get all the players for the World Cup if it's before the NHL season. So that might be interesting. I like that. I'm gonna retweet you, Eric, just because that's an interesting viewpoint.
I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, I mean, the World Championship is a big deal in Europe, actually.
Very big deal.
So it'd be interesting. It seems like the World Cup is trying to co-opt how big of a deal the World Championship is in Europe and how big the Olympics and other hockey is in North America, and combine it. And I think they might just end up falling through on both fronts. I'm not convinced this is going to be a success.
I don't think the World Cup or the World Championship will ever supersede the Olympics in the minds of players or fans.
Yeah, it seems impossible.
If I was a player, there's no way that I would ever not want to play in the Olympics, and there's no way that me winning a gold medal in the Olympics would ever mean less than a World Championship or a World Cup. Maybe a Stanley Cup, but that's me. But a lot of Europeans say that the Olympics is the end-all, be-all. The Olympics matter more to them, and this is why you see so many teams like Finland beating the U.S. in the bronze medal game, where the U.S. didn't give a shit, because U.S. players don't care unless they win the championship in the Olympics.
That game makes me so angry. Let's not.
Me too.
In fact, ever since that game, I've held a little bit of a grudge against almost every player in that game. I'm still mad at Zach Parise. You sucked. You were the captain and you sucked. Ugh.
I was so mad at Dustin Brown.
I was so mad at Patrick Kane for missing those 2 fucking penalty shots. Oh, get out. Should have let TJ Oshie take one.
Dave is saying that people are going to be even more tired before they start an 82-game series or season. That's true, especially if you're like the Kings or the Blackhawks, who have played so many games over the last 3 years, and now you're expected to play even more. I mean, the Kings players and Blackhawks players have averaged like 90 to 100 games per season the last 3 years or 4 years or whatever, the full seasons, and all of a sudden you're going to have them play even more games.
Plus, those are both teams that send a lot of people to the Olympics, to the All-Star game. the things that tire people out.
Brian's saying that the point is to grow the game, which is what the NHL is trying to do. I don't know how much this would grow the game, though. Which, to me, if you're an NHL fan, you're already going to watch this regardless. That's not lie. All of us are going to watch this if we're hockey fans. But how many of the people that you're saying will grow the game are going to watch this? Like, how many people in the American public are going to watch the World Cup of Hockey? They're going to be like, what the fuck is the World Cup of Hockey?
It seems to me like if you wanted to grow the game, the thing to do would be what the NBA or NFL does, which is play a couple of games in non-traditional markets. You know, I would rather see an NHL European tour that takes the place of preseason for a couple of teams, where they go play in London, and they go play in Beijing, and maybe they go play in, I don't know, Lahore is huge in field hockey. Maybe they go play in Pakistan. And get some people who don't always watch hockey to watch hockey. I think that's the next step to grow the game.
Well, they haven't done it in non-traditional markets. But they've gone to Europe or to Asia to play preseason games. Not preseason, they actually mattered. Like during the preseason, teams would go to those areas. Yeah, I agree with you, though, because there's been talk about the NHL not going to South Korea for the next Olympics.
I will throw a fucking temper tantrum.
Me too. But why would you not, instead of this, maybe go to South Korea or Japan or places like that where there are professional leagues, they're just not very good, where you want to actually grow the game, and there's A, the economy to, and B, the seemingly interest to.
Yeah.
So I can see that. Like the NFL has gone to London, and they've gone to Mexico City, and they've gone to places where they feel they can grow the game. I don't really know how much this will actually grow the game personally. You're hosting this in Toronto. It's already the mecca of hockey.
Honestly, the NHL actually has a huge advantage, which is that they have a roadmap to where you can grow the game. And you know what that roadmap is? Look at countries that are good at figure skating. Because those countries have the infrastructure for it. They've got the ice rinks, they've got skate shops, they've got people who watch. You know, there's an untapped market of boys and girls who aren't going to cut it in figure skating, who might cut it in hockey. You know, so China, South Korea, Japan, those are all places, huge parts of Central Asia, which already play hockey, would be great markets. China really should be a focus for the NHL.
China is already a focus for the NFL. The NFL is already promoting, the NBA has been promoting China forever, and it's working there.
Yeah, I've been to
MLB already promotes China and all of Asia, pretty much.
The first time I went to China, I was 16 years old, and I was talking to, I think it was my Chinese teacher, like Chinese language partner or whatever. I was like, I'm a huge sports fan. I know that in lots of parts of the world the biggest sport is China, but I don't know what the most popular sport in China is. And she looked at me like I was an idiot, and she said, there are 1 billion people that live in this country. Every sport is the most popular sport. That basically every sport has 30 million fans, easily, because the population is just so huge. So, you know, you could have the population of Canada and still be a tiny sport in China. They're a huge hockey market.
For those that don't know, 30 million is roughly the Canadian population.
Yeah, I just assumed everyone knew that.
Well, you know, not everybody does. Actually, the state of California has like 36 million people in it, and we have more people in the state of California than all of Canada has. So yeah, you're right.
You know what you also have? You have more Stanley Cups in the past 25 years than Canada does.
That's true. Oh, yeah, in the last 25 years?
Yeah.
Since 90, yeah. They've only have 2 since then. That's very true.
Suck it, Canada.
1990 and 93. Stupid 93 in Montreal.
Yeah, fucking Patrick Wall.
Yeah, well, by the way, Eric's reminding us about the Olympics, so at least Canada has that. Thank you, Eric. We're very happy for you. I'm glad Drew Doughty got 2 gold medals with you guys.
I will say, I think it is my suspicion that the NHL will continue to go to the Olympics
Oh yeah, for sure.
because as long
Especially because NBC has the rights to the Olympics for God knows how long. There's no way that
as
they
compete
NBC
against
isn't going to
a
pressure.
KHL,
Yeah.
yeah, because the NHL does not want to risk Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin saying, no, 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 we have to play the Olympics and fucking off to Russia for a year. That would be
But
extremely
it's not
bad.
only that. It's that NBC promotes the Olympics. They promote all the players. The NHL basically gets free promotion out of the Olympics. Yes, there's guys like John Tavares that got hurt in the Olympics, but overall, the NHL as a product, how many people knew TJ Oshie's name before the Olympics? Like, it's St. Louis. No offense to the Blues. I know they're a proud franchise, but realistically,
Are
how
they?
many Americans could tell you TJ Oshie's name, like that watch ESPN on a regular daily basis before the Olympics? And they already have a deal in place for the Olympics with NBC, who shows all of the NHL weekly games on the national level. Like, there's no way the NHL doesn't do this. It would be dumb on their part to not do it.
The Olympics brings high drama to hockey. They bring high drama to everything. And people come back from the Olympics with storylines and with, household names, and they do. They grow the game. People on the street do know who TJ. I mean, not everyone on the street, but people do know who TJ Oshie is. He's the perfect example. Jonathan Quick would be another example, honestly. A lot more people know who Jonathan Quick is now, probably on the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, winning 2 Stanley Cups helps as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had won a Stanley Cup before then, but, when you become the goaltender for the United States, that's a little bit different than being a Stanley Cup, The LA Kings won the Stanley Cup, their goaltender is Jonathan Quick. That goes in one ear, not the other for a lot of people, as opposed to, a lot of people watch the Olympics who don't necessarily watch the Stanley Cup, who's that guy I'm cheering for? That's Jonathan Quick. And he was spectacular in much of the Olympics. I think he stuck with a lot of people.
True.
Wasn't so great in that Team Finland game, but can't blame him.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really blame him too much for that one.
No, I blame basically everyone else more than I blame him.
So, moving on. I mean, we've been talking about this for a little bit. I had another thing. The NHL.com, and I don't know how big you are on this, but I know some of our listeners are, especially Chris. NHL.com is revamping their website within the next month. They're going to be adding Corsi, Fenwick, and advanced stats. I'm loving this.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
So, I personally think, I am a fan of all sports, but I think the NHL's website for stats already is one of the best of the 4 major sports, and it feels like they're progressive. NHL, if there's one thing that they've always done as well, if not better than most other leagues, well, not with television deals, at least with the internet, the NHL's been on their game. They don't mind social media presence or teams having their own personalities there, which you don't see in a lot of other sports. They've always been top-notch on stats. They've always been top-notch on allowing their videos to be shown on YouTube and other places like that, unlike, say, the MLB, which is neo-Nazis about having any highlights of baseball on YouTube and constantly get stuff pulled down, things like that. So the NHL, from that viewpoint, to me, has always been super progressive on those types of things. They haven't always been the greatest at marketing their own sport, but from a technological standpoint, they've always been very progressive, and I like that they have taken a rooted interest in advanced stats and seen that there's a market for it and are now revamping their website in order to accommodate those fans that care that much about it. So I am excited.
One of my life goals is to have the express written consent in Major League Baseball. But yeah, I'm a big advanced stat fan. A lot of people have noticed the absence of Cap Geek, but frankly, I still miss Extra Skater probably more than I miss Cap Geek. If the NHL can ever come close to approximating how great Extra Skater was, that'd be amazing. you know what? It's not for everyone, but most of these advanced stats are actually pretty simple. Um, it's adds so much to your comprehension of the game and can make your understanding of the game so much richer. I think it's great, and I think that it's some of the NHL social media accounts. Speaking of that, have actually begun using advanced stats. The Blackhawks will tweet out not just shot totals, which almost everyone does now, but who were the Corsi leaders for that period, or what's the relative Corsi percents. And so it's coming, and for the NHL to stay on top of that is great. And you don't get to say that all the time, but the NHL is definitely on top of this one.
I think that Chris points out that the NBA has good stat stuff too, but in my opinion at least, as somebody I have not admittedly followed the NBA as closely as NHL, but as a huge stats guy myself, and anybody that knows me on a regular basis knows, even though I don't necessarily follow some sports as much, I still retain a lot of information on it from a stat. Like my mind retains stats. Like that's just kind of my thing. Like I love stats. I'll read stats. If I go and check up on NBA stuff, I'm always checking on stats and things like that. It's just that way with me for everything. So for me, even though yes, the NBA has improved drastically on stats, in my opinion, in the last 10 years, I don't think the NBA had or has been as progressive as the NHL is. Maybe they've been more so recently in the last couple of years, but like 10 years ago, maybe not 10 years ago, but close to 10 years ago, the NHL was already putting up a lot more stats than other leagues were. Especially if you played fantasy sport. I'm a huge fantasy sports guy. I've played fantasy basketball and football and hockey and baseball. And it's like if you ever want to find a lot of stats, it was always so hard to find as many stats as you would find on NHL.com, in my opinion. I might be wrong here. You might think I don't know what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable on stats, especially from a fantasy standpoint. And yes, the NHL, or I should say, excuse me, the NBA has done a much better job recently than some others. But I just really have always appreciated that hockey seems to progress with the way that the internet and just trends are moving. So it's good to see other sports doing that too, because hopefully it'll lead to people like baseball. And baseball is still the good old boys club in a lot of different ways. So I would love to see better stats and info from baseball and football as well, and I'm really happy to see more from NHL.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Daniel says that we need to stop calling them advanced stats. It's just data taken from counting. I would agree with you.
That seems like a weirdly pedantic objection to have, to be honest. Like, of all the problems I have with like the advanced stats system and regime that we have, that's just not one of them.
Well, baseball's pretty much stopped calling them like sabermetrics, or I mean, they still call them sabermetrics, but they still call it like Moneyball and things like that. But at this point, it's kind of just become part of the daily routine when you talk about different things. I feel like when you talk about sabermetrics, you talk about it in the context of referring to it as something that progressed past normal stats, or you talk about it in a fantasy sport context. So for me, I think advanced stats are going to be that same way. Maybe someday we'll see a fantasy sports site with hockey that we do with baseball. In baseball, for those that don't play fantasy baseball, you have your normal 5x5 fantasy leagues where you have like 5 hitting categories and 5 pitching categories. You also have now fantasy leagues with sabermetrics, which is basically the Moneyball stats, where you have like on base percentage
Wait, are you
or
telling me that we could have a Corsi fantasy hockey league?
well, in baseball you basically do, yeah.
Oh my god, I want that so much.
So maybe we'll
Oh
progress to
my
that point.
god.
No, but yeah, so in baseball, like your normal 5x5 league has like hits, batting average, home runs, stolen bases, and RBIs, and then you have on pitching you have wins, strikeouts, saves, WHIP, which is basically hits and walks per innings pitched, and then ERA. But then with sabermetrics, you have like slugging percentage and on base percentage and like all the other sabermetric stuff instead of just those basically the normal generic 5x5 stuff that they always had for years. So yeah, if that's something that we progress into with fantasy hockey, then yeah, you could have a Corsi slash whatever else league if there
I don't
becomes
even
more
know what to do
steps.
with my hands. This is amazing. First overall pick, Patrice Bergeron. This is going to be so great.
Patrice Bergeron would
I'm
be the
just going to
number one
tweet
overall pick in every league. It'd be like
every single
Bergeron,
league.
Kopitar,
Yeah. Fuck Crosby. I'm
Jonathan
gonna
Taves.
I'm gonna tweet my results at Steve Simmons every week. Every single week. This is incredible. I don't know, you've never told me about this before. I'm already making plans for the Corsi Hockey League. Fantasy Corsi Hockey League. It also bears saying, to get on a more serious note, we saw the debut of puck tracking technology and player tracking technology at the All-Star game. They were making a really big deal out of how cool it was and how accurate it was. And as we see that, not only will the stats we have get more accurate, shots are counted differently in every building, scoring chances are counted differently in every building, but new stats are going to emerge. What we have right now is frankly pretty rudimentary. Corsi is literally just like add things and subtract things. PDO is also just add things together. PDO is an ingenious idea.
Callum Mormine just threw out right now, he'd love to see the NHL use more data to innovate the stats. He says PDO could be customized to be expected, like, per roster.
Well, actually, I already do that. You can sort of average out the PDO by team. Something that I've been looking at recently, I haven't written anything, but PDO has an age curve. So, like, when you're in the prime of your career, obviously you're going to expect your shooting percentage to be higher. And so this works better for shooting percentage than goaltending. Because obviously you can't control what the goaltending is. Well, a little bit. Anyways, the point is, shooting percent is going to go in a curve, sort of a bell curve type shape. When you're 18 years old, it's going to be good, but it's not going to be as good as it is when you're 22-year-old, when you should be hitting the peak of your career. And obviously we expect a lower shooting percentage from 2015's Jarome Iginla than we did from 2009's Jarome Iginla. And so we're going to start seeing, I think, graphs like that, especially with longer-term data in terms of Corsi and shooting percentage and for goalie save percentage over time, and how to check and sort of gauge how the average career is progressing. And I think that's somewhere that advanced stats will probably go next.
I asked who's going to make the first Corsi Hockey League, and Eric says Eric Tangradi. All right, throwing out the random players.
Oh man, I cannot wait. Corsi Hockey League, Best Hockey League.
I'm sure somebody's already working on it, but
yeah, guys, if you're listening to this, tell me who your ideal Corsi Hockey League lineup is in fantasy. I assume you've got Rob Zepp on the back end, as everyone does in their winning fantasy hockey teams. And you've got your first overall pick, Patrice Bergeron, but fill out the middle of your roster for me. Who is your fantasy Corsi Hockey League All-Star? This is amazing.
Oh yeah, and Chris tweeted me with the Corsi numbers for Patrice Bergeron. So, yes, we know he's good. Thank you.
You know what I want? I want a PDO hockey league where you just pick who's going to be the luckiest player this year. Like Nick Foligno, PDO hockey all-star, right? Nick Foligno's PDO is unreal this season. Or last year, just the entire Colorado Avalanche team. I want sheer
the Kings and Buffalo would be dead last in that league. Nobody would pick them.
But and Calgary would be the number one team. The Ducks always have a really high PDO. Ryan Getzlaf, first overall PDO pick, maybe. I want a league where you just guess at the beginning of the season who's going to be the luckiest player this year and just fucking run with it.
Well, Steven Stamkos would still go high because he always shoots 20%.
Yeah. But you have to count on Ben Bishop being good, too, then.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. See, there's an element of sheer blind luck in this. I just want to look at a roster at the beginning of the year and you know what? I've got a really great feeling about like.
Well, the problem with that then is it just becomes more betting than actual skill because PDO is supposedly about luck, but at the same time, it's really not when you look over the course of multiple seasons. It's like the Kings' PDO the last 3 years has been one of the worst in the league, but they've won 2 out of the last 3 cups. So that's just one of those things where you're like, I don't know.
It's a combination of, sort of the research knowing who's due to have a good season, who looks good, who has historically low PDO, high PDO, who's going to regress, who's going to advance, and also just sheer blind luck. Whoever drafted Nick Foligno in your normal fantasy hockey league is having a fucking ball because he's being really lucky. If you drafted Nick Foligno in the PDO hockey league, you'd be out of your mind, just rolling around in wins. And I just want those random sleeper picks to be overemphasized. There's my idea for the worst fantasy idea you've ever heard, but I think it's great. I do want to play Corsi Hockey League next year. I'm so ready for that.
All right, somebody make that happen.
Yeah. Other Dave is running one of our leagues.
I'm actually running that league too. So.
Oh, well then you make the Corsi Hockey League.
If ESPN or Yahoo or somebody will actually allow that, then sure. kind of part of the problem is, as much as you want to customize leagues as well as you can as a league manager and as somebody that likes playing fantasy, it's the limitations of the website you're running it on. So, I guess actually Eric wasn't joking. Eric Tangradi is actually a decent Corsi player. My bad. Sorry. I thought you were joking. My bad. I'm sure that there are plenty of good Corsi players that you just don't know about who would definitely jump up in the draft if we had a Corsi draft, though. So.
Yeah, it'd be a great opportunity for, a guy like.
And Kellen Moore, or go ahead.
No, I get.
Kellen Moormine says he wants to see the importance of face-offs adequately quantified by zone, strength, clean, or tie-up. So yeah, Jonathan Toews once again with those face-offs. And Jared Stoll jumps up into the second round of our draft.
Well, I actually think what we found out about face-offs is that they don't matter. Basically, the effects of winning a face-off 10 seconds after you've won the face-off are gone. So there's a very minimal positive effect to face-offs. That doesn't mean necessarily...
I've heard that, but at the same time...
It's very counterintuitive. And I think the reason for that is...
I would still like to see more information on that.
I can try and find the article.
Okay.
I think the reason that's so counterintuitive to me is that an individual face-off can matter so much. If you're down by 1 and there's 45 seconds left on the clock, winning a face-off in the offensive zone matters hugely. But over the long run, in terms of keeping and losing possession, and for all teams, I haven't seen this broken down by team, the advantage of winning a face-off, it turns out to not be pretty negligible. Actually, I might not be able to find the article. I think the guy who did it best was Dillo, and his stuff is gone now, obviously. But someone else must have written about it.
I understand that over the course of a game, that may be true when you look at everything involved in the 4 different lines of players and how many people are taking face-offs and which zones and all that. But I really feel like face-offs are extremely important in certain situations, like you said, like power play. Extremely important. If you win, let's say you're in the zone and you have the power play at the beginning of that power play. If you win the face-off and you're able to maintain control in the offensive zone for a minute or two, passing the puck around or getting shots or whatever else, that's huge. Versus the defending team winning the face-off, clearing the zone, and then from there you have to regroup and come back in. To me, face-offs are still very important, but it's given the context. And over the course of the game, you would assume it averages out a little bit. But even if it only improves your odds 1 to 5% per game, that still means there is an advantage to winning in face-offs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only numbers I've seen are 5v5. I don't know what the numbers are for power plays. That's a really good point. I also think that even if there only is an advantage for 10 seconds, you know, there's still an advantage, and the advantage decreases as you get farther out from the actual event. People do score off face-offs, and people score in the initial shots off face-offs, not infrequently. So, not everyone Maryland use it from a face-off, but every once in a while someone will.
Right.
So I'm not willing to totally write them off either. I know that there are advanced stats people who do. I'm certainly not claiming to be an expert, but one thing I definitely learned from advanced stats that maybe I've thought otherwise until this year or last year was that I now think face-offs are a lot less important than they were.
Well, I'm just going to throw out an example from this week. And if I can find it immediately, but I know that this week the Stars, I believe, had like 2 seconds left on the clock in a period, and they sent out their guys to do the face-off. Jamie Benn got the puck and scored with like 0.6 seconds or something like that. So it definitely matters in certain situations, in my opinion. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Maybe I can't find it, but anyway, I've seen too many times. Oh, there we go. All right, so yeah, playing against Montreal this week, the Stars had 2.7 seconds left on the clock. They pulled their goalie, set up with their face-off crew, and Jamie Benn scored within a second. So there are definitely times where, in my opinion, the face-offs still matter when you're in the right opportunity and the right. But yeah, over the course of over the course of 60 minutes, it might only attribute to 1 to 5% benefit, but at the same time, to me, that's still huge.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I see that Chris just sent us some stuff on face-offs. I'm not going to look at it right now because I cannot talk and do advanced stats at once. I can walk and chew gum, but I cannot advance stat and podcast at once. But I think that it's great what advanced stats can show you about the game, and I think that I now have a much finer appreciation for who is good at controlling play and who isn't. But at the same time, I think that I always sort of had the idea that if you spent more time in the offensive zone, you were better than if you spent more time in the defensive zone. Just now that we see it more clearly and can quantify it more clearly. But there are also revelations that will surprise you, and face-offs are one of those things. Or defensemen, I think trying to evaluate defensemen using advanced stats is something that's going to go a long way forward. For me, learning about shooting percentage and learning about regression of shooting percentage helps explain a lot of stuff that I watched as a kid and didn't understand. So stats are great, and I think Dave and I would both encourage you to check out the stats.
And yeah, I mean, there's some guys, I don't know about you on your team, but there's some guys I'll just take for my team for an example that people always talk about their Corsi being high, and that's Justin Williams. When you watch Justin Williams play, he's not the most flashy player, he's not the greatest scorer, he's never been, but he controls the puck, and while he's not a shifty guy who was going to make great plays with his hands or stick in the way that like a Patrick Kane or a Datsuk will, there is something to be said about just maintaining the puck in your offensive zone. Because even if you don't necessarily get that scoring chance yourself, you're still preventing the other team from scoring when you're in that zone. Even if you only get a shot or something else, at least it puts pressure on and it limits the scoring opportunities of the other team. And that's something that people don't always necessarily in their head think of as being the greatest offensive contribution. Everybody always thinks goals and points. But at the same time, there's just something to be said about limiting the defensive chances as well. So
yeah, I think for defensemen too, something I've learned to watch is how do defensemen sort of control the blue line and control entries and exits. And a guy like Duncan Keith is really, really great at that. Someone whose advanced stat numbers aren't that great is Shea Weber. Shea Weber is not that great at getting the puck out of his own zone. He's still a great defenseman, but it does help you understand his game to think about him in that way versus trying to compare him to straight up Duncan Keith, and it's quite difficult actually.
Now, is that over the course of his career or over the course of this season? Because I will say, in Shea Weber's defense, he's played on some pretty terrible teams. So
Over the course of his career, what is going on in this Ducks Blackhawks game? We already have a scrum.
good.
Ben Smith is starting shit. I love you, Ben Smith. With Ryan Getzlaf. Oh, Ryan Getzlaf, that is not a trade-off you want to make. Back away. Anyway, sorry. Over the course of his career, Shea Weber's had pretty good possession numbers. Since Ryan Suter left Nashville, they have not been as good. I read an interesting breakdown of this the other day from On the Forecheck, which is a great Nashville Predators blog. That theorized basically that Shea Weber got the puck back, and then Ryan Suter carried it out of the zone. And Roman Josi is not as good, and whoever else Shea Weber's played with over the past 3 years, Seth Jones that 1 year, has not been as good at getting the puck out of the zone once Weber has gotten it back, and he's not as confident with it. And so that's why his numbers haven't been, his advanced stat numbers haven't been very good, even as he has played very good hockey the past couple of years.
That makes sense. But and since Ryan Suter's come over to Minnesota, their Corsi numbers have improved dramatically. So,
They have. His numbers are not as good by himself as they were when he played with Shea Weber. He's also played with some pretty questionable defensive partners. Brodin has turned out to be a good defensive player, but obviously he's no Shea Weber. Marco Scantella has also had some good seasons, but he's no Shea Weber. So they're better together than they are apart, but Ryan Suter has turned out to have the better numbers separated, perhaps because he's the better at skating it out of the zone. And Suter is a tremendous skater. That's a part of his game people have always talked about.
as somebody that grew up playing defense, and who I'm somebody like there's once you play the game, like people often rail on people that are like, well, you never played the game, you don't know what you're talking about. But at the same time, when you do play the game, you see a lot of things that people that have never played the game see. And I gotta say, the strides that Ryan Suter makes backwards are some of the most powerful backwards skating strides you'll ever see. If you ever really want to appreciate, there's certain people that have been better skaters as defensemen, like a Scott Niedermayer. Doughty's a great skater, but just going like straight up backwards, he gets so much speed and generates so much power on his strides and his crossovers. It's just remarkable to see. I just want to throw that out there.
One thing that he does, you're absolutely right, and he generates that much power, and then he's able to glide a lot more. He has to take fewer strides, and that's part of what helps him play so many minutes a night.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And actually, I know we mentioned this earlier, but Logan Couture did that article on the centers around the league, and he mentioned how powerful Sidney Crosby's stride is, and he had a GIF of him splitting two defensemen, and how when he split those two defensemen, he only took one stride to do it, but it was so powerful, and then he got so much speed off of it that it really makes you appreciate just how strong these guys' legs are sometimes, and that's just, I don't know. When you watch the professionals, obviously they're professionals for a reason, but it's one of those things, like I said, that if you've never played, you don't always appreciate how great players are because you just watch them and you're like, wow, they're really fast, or wow, they have great hands, or something like that. But when you actually try to do it yourself, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah, Crosby has great lower body strength. As Marty St. Louis would say, you never skip leg day as a hockey player.
Oh, yeah.
Crawford just stopped a great chance from Palmieri on the power play.
That's unfortunate.
Who are you rooting for here?
Honestly, I don't care from a standing standpoint, but I'm on a 7-game winning streak on Reddit's Pick'em right now, and I'm tied for the league in current winning streak, and I picked the Ducks to win tonight, so I'm only picking the Ducks because of that. It has nothing to do with your team or my fan allegiance in any way. I'm doing it purely for selfish reasons and the fact that I want to have the top winning streak right now.
Well, you bet on the wrong team, man. Always bet on the Blackhawks.
Yeah, but you see, the Ducks did really well against the Blackhawks last year, and I know the Blackhawks just scored, so I'm sure you're happy.
Oh, I've not gotten there yet. Fuck you.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
We scored shorthanded?
No,
No, after the power.
you
Okay,
are
I still
way
got
far
30
behind.
seconds left on the power play.
Are you watching Game Center?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. For those of you that have Game Center, you're always going to be a minute or two behind. So I apologize. I didn't know that.
I still have 15 seconds left on the power play.
You are way behind.
All right. Well, I'm glad to know we take the lead. We played
Actually,
Anaheim terribly
this has
last year.
been. I waited all day long trying to figure out why I would choose one team or the other. I was so conflicted on who I should pick today. I only picked the Ducks because they were the home team today, and I was like, I know Chicago just lost to the Kings, and I know the Ducks just got killed by San Jose, but I thought the Ducks getting killed by San Jose would change their mentality more. Like, you know, when maybe you just overthink stuff, but you're like, okay, this team just got shellacked by San Jose. They'll come out. They've lost to San Jose 4 times this season, so they're just going to come out and think, you know what? This is no big deal. San Jose's got our number. But we did pretty well against Chicago last season, so we got this. Whereas, like, we're coming back home. Whereas I was like, well, Chicago just lost to, the Kings, and they're like, well, we lost them in the playoffs last year, so maybe they'd come into here and think, and I don't know. I overthought it. Whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Blackhawks are coming off pissed. They're pissed about that loss.
But I would think that the Ducks would be pissed about losing to San Jose last night, 6-2 or whatever it was.
6-3. Joel Quenneville is pissed, and you know Joel Quenneville is pissed because right now he's playing Patrick Kane with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Sharp, which is basically the nuclear option for the Blackhawks.
I just gotta say, betting on, well, not necessarily betting, but just like picking winners in sports is never easy. Like, I play a ton of fantasy sports. I like betting on sports. To me, it makes everything more fun. A lot of people, I play 13 fantasy leagues, and a lot of people that play fantasy or have never played fantasy are like, how can you do that? How can you, like, root for all different kinds of players or teams or whatever else and still love your own team as well? To me, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not that heartbroken one way or the other. To me, I've always told people I'm a fan of hockey first and a fan of the Kings second. To me, it's just you gotta just love the game, and I love fantasy aspect of games. I love betting on games. I like doing this pick'em thing that Reddit does, just because it's fun. Like, I just love the competition of it and all that. So for me, but I overthink it sometimes. I guess I don't overthink it too badly. I'm one of the top, 25 people in the pick'em this year, but...
You know, I chose not to play it this year, and I thought... Last year I played. I did pretty well, actually. I think I finished in the top 15 or 20. But it was so stressful for me last year. Just, like, having to make the picks and doing the picks, and, what if I forgot? What if there was a day game? But this year I decided I wasn't going to do it. In the beginning of the season, I was so jealous that everyone was doing it. Like, oh, I want to be playing so bad. And right now, at this point of the season, thank God I'm not. That's so stressful. How do you do that every day?
Well, last season I actually complained to the guy that was running it because he would do the Sunday ones, which are the doubles. So for those of you that don't play the pick'em, every day of the season that there's games on, they choose a game and you have to pick the winner or loser of the game. But Sundays every week are double. So you don't only pick the winner of the game, but they'll have another category, like who's going to score the first goal, who's going to get the first hit, who's going to get the first save, blah, blah, blah. There's always some random other thing that you get a double on. And last season, almost every Sunday game was like the noon game here on was like the 9 a.m. game here on the West Coast. So like half of the people that were on the West Coast didn't even get up early enough to do it, and like a lot of us bitched at them. So thankfully they've made a concerted effort, because I missed so many games last season on Sundays where it was just like people would get double points. And I'm like, dude, I didn't even wake up by 9 o'clock. It's Sunday. Like, really? Anyway. I don't know. Do you ever bet on sports?
I do. Not that often. Mostly with friends. or family. I don't do that much like professional betting on sports. But if I'm somewhere where people are betting on sports, I'll do it. Um, I used to play in a really fun losers pool in football, but I don't watch football enough to do that anymore. Um, I bet on tennis sometimes. I'm not like one of the crazy people who bets on like futures tournaments, but I'll bet on mostly Masters of Thousands tournaments. Um, I'll bet on the Stanley Cup playoffs. Last year I made a couple $100 on beating the Wild.
That's cool. Yeah, I will bet on hockey. I don't bet on a lot of other sports in general because I don't feel confident enough in my knowledge normally.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that you bet on in general that are like givens for most sports. Like in football, if a team is favored at home by 3, you almost always bet on them because that means the game's basically a toss-up and the home team will win the majority of the time. Um, just little things like that. Or I'll bet on baseball sometimes if there's a pitcher like Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers or something like that. But yeah, I pretty much only bet on hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of tennis, obviously, so for me, they're sort of on a level.
By the way, we were going to talking about tennis tonight, and I just want to say, even though I know your boy Roger Federer has not done well in this tournament in the Australian Open, for those of you that don't know, I personally think the tournament's been pretty good this year.
I think the women's tournament has been really good. Especially when you look at sort
But
of
the
the way
men's has had more upsets. I mean, the women's finals is the number 1 versus number 2 seed. So yeah, it's been good, but at the same time, you have Sharapova versus Serena Williams. So it's.
But I mean, Andy Murray versus Novak Djokovic is basically the number 1 versus number 2 seed. Murray's ranking is low because he had a back surgery that it took him a long time to heal from. But it's not like Andy Murray is really a number 6 seed.
Okay, I'll give you that.
These are basically the 2 finals that you would have anticipated. It was either going to be Andy Murray or Rafael Nadal, and it was definitely going to be Novak Djokovic on the other side. These are exactly what you would have anticipated sort of looking at the bracket. But we saw some really great performances. Madison Keys played an amazing tournament. Marikova, who was the other semifinalist, played a good tournament as well. Thomas Berdych played some of his best tennis I've ever seen. Venus Williams had an incredible resurgence, made the quarterfinals. She's coming off a terrible autoimmune disorder that's destroyed her career. I thought this was a pretty good tournament. I'll give it decent credit.
By the way, Eric, shout out to Eric, Buffs Buffet, who said that he won the Iron Hockey Playoff Pick'em last season, so nice work.
Oh, congratulations. I did not know that. I admire all of those of you who are doing it because I find that really stressful.
Yeah, I will say, like, the West Coast thing has still killed me a couple times this season. There's been a couple times I've woken up on Saturday or Sunday and the game's already on, and I'm like, fuck. But anyway, moving on back to more hockey stuff.
Wait, no, let's go back to tennis.
Oh, okay.
Who's your? Okay,
I don't know how many people that are listening actually care about tennis, but
we'll give it 30 seconds. Give me your
30 good seconds of tennis.
Yeah, give me your women's final and your men's final pick.
Who's
your win? How many sets?
I don't trust Murray enough to root for to pick him, honestly. Maybe if it was Wimbledon and he was playing on grass because he seems to do better there than Djokovic. I gotta pick Djokovic. And
how many sets?
I'm gonna go 4.
All right.
In the women's, I think it'll go all 3.
And who you got?
Sharapova's playing really well right now. I'm gonna pick her.
You know, she hasn't beaten Serena since 2004.
I understand this.
Okay.
I don't care. Dude, she's been so dominant at this tournament.
Well, I'm going to go completely 180 from you. I'm going to take Serena I'll take her in 3 sets. And I'm going to take Andy Murray because Andy Murray plays the best when he has something to prove, and Andy Murray has something to prove right now.
That's a good point.
I'll take Andy Murray in 4 or 5, not less than 4 for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see who's right. Check in on my Twitter feed if you don't watch tennis. They're playing
Well,
both of them outrageously early in the
what,
morning.
one set this whole thing?
I think Serena's also only lost 1 set.
Really? Okay. For some reason, I thought maybe I was thinking the other Williams, Venus. I don't know. For some reason, I thought that Serena had struggled a little bit more, but I just know that Sharapova's. I don't know. Tough to say, but Serena, if she wins this, she'll tie Steffi Graf with 19 Grand Slam titles, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
She will not come even close to the all-time record.
Oh, I know. I know.
Which is Navratilova's, I think. But
for women's?
For anyone, the most Grand Slam titles. Let's see. I'm going to Google this really quick.
Well, as far as total championships, it's Martina Navratilova, but that's between like singles and doubles and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Navratilova has the most. She's got like an outrageous number.
Yeah. So, as far as just women goes,
Margaret Court
still holds the record.
No, you're incorrect. Margaret Court holds the record.
For the Open era or overall? Oh,
no,
I'm
overall.
sorry. Overall, yeah. Margaret Court. Sorry.
Open era, it's Steffi Graf. Open era is the better measure. For those of you who don't know, before the Open era, everything was very confusing. Also, no one went to the Australian Open, so Australians won it every year because it was just really far. And so Margaret Court was an Australian. She won like 1 billion Australian Opens. It very much inflated her number. It's outrageous.
This is also why, like, no offense, because he was still a great player, but Rod Laver won so many.
Yeah, I think he still is one of the great players of all time, but definitely his numbers are a little inflated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Ken Rosewall as well, who was the other great player of that era. I didn't realize Bjorn Borg had 11 Grand Slam titles. That seems like too many.
He was a great player, though. He retired really young, too.
Yeah, because he was just like, yeah, fuck it. I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. If he kept playing, he definitely could have gotten 14, which is what Sampras had, and that's the record until Roger Federer obviously broke it. I'm holding out for an 18th title, though.
Bjorn Borg, I think he retired by the time he was 30, didn't he? Not even 30.
Yeah, not even 30. Maybe 28.
Just ridiculous. I know everybody that tuned into this tonight really wanted to hear us talk about tennis. So
they all knew it was coming. You all knew.
So Rod Laver, maybe I was wrong about him. He only won 3 Australians. Roy Emerson won 6, though.
Yeah. Ken Rosewall won 1 or 2, I think. Rosewall kept losing to...
He won 4.
He went 4? Okay. Maybe Laver fucked off to Europe and left Rosewall to win the Australian Open. Laver was the better player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was, let's see. So Bjorn Borg was born in 56, and he retired in 83. So he was...
You know what's amazing about Bjorn Borg, though, is that he never won on hard court.
Yeah, he was the true grass court player.
Well, he won... No, he was both. Grass and clay.
Yeah, but... I mean, yeah, he won the French Open. But I was always under the impression, at least, that he was better on...
No, Bjorn Borg won more on clay than grass.
Well, they play more on clay than on grass.
No, I'm talking about Grand Slams.
Oh, well.
Bjorn Borg won 6 French Opens. He won 5 Wimbledon.
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to take that as definitive proof that he was a better player on clay than on grass.
I was only talking about his Grand Slams, but okay. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, no, dude, he was amazing.
Yeah. So, I'm already looking forward to Wimbledon, because fuck the French Open. The French Open is terrible. But
What? Are you only saying that because Rafael Nadal's going to win already?
yeah, because it's not fun.
I'll give you that. It's not fun. For the men, at least.
Yeah, for the women, it's fun. You get a lot of upsets on clay court in women's. There are so many breaks of serve, and the movement's so different. But for the men's, there's a less than 5% chance if Rafael Nadal is healthy that he does not win the French Open. And it's like, why even bother then? Just give him the Coupe de Mosquieres and move on.
Yep.
Oh, Ryan Getzlaf just like bordered Brent Seabrook. Not good. I guess that would have been like 45 seconds ago for you.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we can move back into hockey. But anyways, you should all watch tennis. Watch my sport.
Callum Ormine says, I like tennis, but I feel like my socioeconomic status is too low to properly enjoy it. That is completely wrong, sir. I'm sorry. Tennis is a sport that anybody can play at any economic status because, realistically, and this isn't just because of the Williams sisters and the fact that they came out of
Compton.
the lower. Yeah, they're locals. But tennis, you gotta buy a racket, you gotta buy shoes. That's about it. So it's not like that much more expensive than most other sports in any way. And there's tennis courts everywhere, so you can literally practice for free.
It's
I will
much less
say that
expensive than
tennis
hockey.
balls, tennis balls even cost less than like golf balls. Like tennis is not that expensive of a sport.
It's true that tennis fans are often, like the fans that you see at the U.S. Open are the whitest people ever. Like even the people who aren't white are just super white, if you know what I mean.
We call them wasps.
Yeah,
I know
well,
that you're not Jewish, or I'm sorry, you are Jewish, so you're not, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but you're like was where you're like white Anglo-Saxon Jewish. So
I'm not Anglo-Saxon, but that's okay.
I don't know.
Um, yeah, no, it's not every tournament is like the Grand Slams, which are pretty pretentious, especially Wimbledon. And tennis is it's just fun.
It is.
And cats love it. Cats love to watch tennis.
Oh, well, that's what's really important. By the
That's
way,
really important.
for those of you that are listening, Ari, while a huge tennis fan, has never actually played tennis. So,
It's true. I've never played tennis.
and someday I'm going to teach her.
My parents kind of looked at me as a child and looked at my hand-eye coordination and decided that we would stick with skiing.
That doesn't matter. You don't need to be the greatest hand-eye coordinated person to play tennis.
As a child, I would have been just repeatedly hit in the face with my own racket. It was just not a good idea. As an adult, I'm probably a little bit better off. As a child, my parents made a good call.
I think that that's a poor excuse in general for athletics. I'm sorry. Like, no offense to your parents or to anybody else who feels that they're unathletic.
No, I mean, I still played sports. I was a figure skater. I was a competitive figure skater. I was a competitive alpine ski racer. I just didn't do anything that required hand-eye coordination.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah. We tried piano, and we quickly learned my limits.
All right, well, I am, people are making fun of my white Anglo-Saxon Jewish. That's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, Jews are basically almost white, so it just depends where you grew up and how Jewish you really are.
That's actually not true. Jews are basically white. Definitely not true.
My buddy's Persian, and he clarifies himself as white. Like, if you're Jewish, you're basically the same skin color. So, I mean, I guess you can clarify yourself as slightly brown, but...
I mean, that's not true. I mean, there are Jews from Ethiopia. There's a huge Jewish population there. Obviously,
Yeah,
there are
but
Jews.
you're talking about the religion, not like.
Yeah, Ethiopian Jews are Jewish. They read the
Are we talking
Torah.
religion or race here?
Both. What's the difference?
There's a huge difference.
I mean, in terms of Judaism, though, the reality is that the two ideas have been vastly conflated through history. And so obviously there are Jews who convert. But in fact, the Jews in Ethiopia, who are no longer there because of basically ethnic cleansing in the 1970s that forced many of them to move to either other parts of Africa or to Israel, may have been one of the lost tribes of Moses and may in fact be more Jewish than most European Jews.
By the way, some people in Ethiopia claim that the Ark of Covenant is still there.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of this sort of theory about the Jews in Ethiopia.
No, I totally get what you're saying, but at the same time, I was thinking of it from a race standpoint. So for me, it's like just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm Protestant. You know, like just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you're, you know, oil skin. You know, it's like I'm just saying, like I don't necessarily think of Jews as being both racial and religious at the same time.
Yeah,
Like
I
to me,
mean,
like Jewish people from Israel doesn't necessarily mean like you're Jewish by religion or vice versa.
well, I think it.
I mean,
Um,
like when you look at a guy like, okay, let's just look at prominent Jews in Hollywood, like like Jerry Seinfeld or the
okay, I mean, there's like
Weinsteins
the
or something
idea
like
of
that. Like they basically look white, but you could say that they're Jewish, but they don't look anything like Middle Eastern people. So,
no.
and like I said, my buddy's Persian. I used to live with a Persian family. They all like when they fill out forms, he's like, I fill out as white because we're not black or Asian or anything else. So
Sure,
it's
it's called being
basically.
white passing. And like I usually am white passing. People don't usually tell me that I look Jewish. But like there is an idea that Judaism is a racial concept. And I actually don't think that should be true. I think that Judaism is a religion, but certainly people discriminate against Jews on a racial basis.
Oh, for sure. I
So,
totally agree with that, but I don't.
so it's definitely not the same as being white, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just meant more from a look standpoint.
And I mean, like, it also depends on where you are at any given time. If I'm in New York, I pass as white better than in Minnesota, where I look visibly different, and therefore it's easier to identify me as Jewish. Or, for example, I pass as British better than I pass as French for a whole variety of reasons, which puts me more at risk of being sort of discriminated against as Jewish in France.
Are you saying you're really pale?
Well, yes. Also, because I don't speak any French. Uh, but yeah, it's an interesting sort of ongoing historical issue. But
I would pass as English more than French as well, really easily. Mostly because I don't speak French.
yeah, exactly. I had sort of tangential anecdote when I went to Hebrew school, which I did for a number of years. My two best friends at Hebrew school, one of them was Japanese and the other was blonde, and so I looked most quote Jewish unquote of the three of us, and we would go places together and be like with this group of Jews. And they'd be like, "Oh, Ari, did you bring your friends?" And I was like, "Yes, but no." People would be like, "Who and what religion are you?" And Evan would be like, "I'm Jewish. I'm just Japanese. Stop, please stop looking at me." So, good times, lots of Jews, rainbow of Jews, Jews everywhere.
I think Aaron Kellamore might be Jewish as well. It maybe it
Yeah,
would appear
full
so.
Jewish.
Okay, I've met him in person. I think he told me this, but he was actually raised Christian. I don't know, but he's now agnostic. I totally forget. Anyway,
Anyway. anyways, that was a discussion about religion that got very thorny. Happy to talk about it anytime with anyone. Love talking about Jews. I don't know. Should we wrap up?
Well, that depends on how intently you're going to be watching the Chicago game, I guess. Also, I don't really have many other big topics to talk about this week, so like I said, this week was a little bit light on hockey just because of the All-Star break and everybody's just kind of getting back into it. But before we sign off, maybe I would say, what was your favorite game of the week?
Well, I can tell you my least favorite game of the week, which, well, actually, I've got a tie.
Okay, then throw out both. What was your favorite and least favorite game of the week?
Well, I'm going to say a tie for least favorite game of the week. My least favorite game that we played in was the Chicago-LA game, where we blew a 1-goal lead 3 times and lost to Los Angeles in regulation. My other least favorite game was St. Louis-Nashville, where they went to overtime. Please stop giving each other extra points. And as for my favorite game of the week, I don't know. We beat Arizona pretty good. That was a good one.
Well, I didn't just necessarily mean from Chicago. I just meant from a hockey standpoint. Even though the Kings won, I felt like the Kings versus Chicago game was one of the most entertaining hockey games of the week, just in general across the NHL. But I think that there was a lot of other good games as well. Like, was there another game that stood out in your mind this week, or at least within the last week, that you really enjoyed?
On Tuesday, the Detroit-Florida game was a pretty fun game. It was really back and forth and sort of up and down. That's a tight game, too, because Florida needs all these points they can get to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think Detroit went up like 5-2 or 5-1, and then Florida came back to make it 5-4, and it was just pretty exciting.
I think that Nashville-San Jose game that you mentioned was really entertaining game from a hockey standpoint as well.
Nashville-St. Louis?
Nashville-St. Louis, where Nashville was up like 2-0. St. Louis scored 3 straight goals. Nashville came back. It was just like back and forth that whole game. It was a fantastic game.
I only saw overtime in the shootout of that game. So, but man, TJ Oshie is just fucking unreal in shootout.
I know, and it pisses me off that I just remember there was a thread one time on our hockey about shootout specialists and like people complaining about like who's your team's shootout specialist or who would you want for shootouts or things like that. And let's say those guys was like, oh, you mean you guys don't have a TJ Oshie on your team? She's like, fuck you, guy. Like, I'm sorry. Like that guy is just so creative and he has such good hands. You're like, wow.
There is a famous line in tennis about picking someone to play a match for your life. And if you had to pick someone to win a shootout for your life, wouldn't you just pick TJ Oshie?
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no question.
Probably Bozak is really good, too. But, yeah, TJ Oshie's amazing.
Eric says that, what are you talking about? There were no games this week. Winnipeg hasn't had a great week. I would say that Buffalo's probably in the same boat, so.
Yeah. Neely asks, so first of all, what is that your favorite game this week, the St. Louis-Nashville game?
No. Maybe it's just because I was emotionally invested in it, but I felt like the LA-Chicago game was actually just really good hockey in general.
That game was bullshit.
And, well...
can we talk about that Brent Seabrook penalty?
That was bullshit.
Thank you. I mean, you guys didn't
totally
score on it.
But at the same time, your fans bitching about Jeff Carter on that third goal was just ridiculous too. So, but yeah, no, that was one of the most bullshit calls. Ovechkin in the game right before that same night when he got that like double penalty for holding / whatever.
Yeah, that was super weird.
That was maybe even a worse call. At least with the Seabrook penalty, I could understand maybe the ref couldn't see the puck and thought he was holding it from his angle. I don't know, but it was still bullshit from a camera viewpoint. So yeah, that was total bullshit. But I don't think that cost them the game.
No, it
was. Like you said earlier, they had 3 leads in that game. So I think that game and then the St. Louis-Nashville game, in my mind, were the 2 best games of the week.
Neely asked a question too, which we didn't get to, that I thought was a really good question, which was of the teams sitting in playoff standing, which ones do you think won't make the playoffs?
Calgary.
Calgary's a good, yeah, they're definitely really close to LA knocking them out. I kind of feel like maybe Winnipeg, isn't as good as they've been. I know they've had a lot of injuries, and they've been this good through the injuries, but all it's going to take is a little bit of a slide for Michael Hutchinson, and that's a team that's pretty close to the brink.
I kind of feel like the East is set. Like, no offense to anybody below them, but I really don't feel like any team that's not in the playoffs right now is better than any team that's in the playoffs in the East.
I will say the one thing about the East is that Florida has only played 46 games.
I get that, but so have the Rangers. So for me, it's like, even if they win those 3 games to catch up to Boston, let's say they win those 3 games, they're still going to be behind Boston, who's at 49 wins. So they're not catching anybody else in the Atlantic.
Is Florida's an Atlantic team? Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I don't think that they're better than Boston or the Rangers, and they aren't going to catch them based on the number of games that they have. So
Although,
in the West, I think that Vancouver and Calgary could both drop out.
I can definitely see if Washington slid out of third in the Metro and the Rangers slid into third in the Metro. You know, I still think Florida's got a shot.
Even if Washington slips out of that position, I don't think that with their coaching and their personnel that they're in any way worse than Florida. Braden Holtby's been playing pretty well.
I definitely think that Florida is not a better team than any of the teams in the playoffs right now. But it's not always that the best teams make the playoffs. But I definitely think that
I'll give you that I'm a little bit. I'll give you at least that I'm a little bit iffy about Washington still. But at the same time, I really feel like with their coach and their personnel that they're going to make it instead of Florida. And I don't feel that Philadelphia, even though they've won 3 in a row, they're sitting at 50 games already. I don't feel like.
I think everyone below Florida is out.
Need a real strong push from Philadelphia.
I think everyone below Florida is out, and I think everyone below Los Angeles is out, honestly. I don't think Dallas can catch up. So I think that either Vancouver, Winnipeg, or Calgary will slip out, and LA will make it. Unfortunately, I think LA will definitely make the playoffs.
I do too, and that's not just a homer thing. I just feel like
you're just too good of a team.
Well, yeah, and like I said, you know what's sad is our PDO has been the worst in the league since December 8th. So our puck luck has been god awful. Our goalie's been god awful. So but since that time period, in the last 2 months, our Corsi's been the best in the league. We're doing everything right system-wise, even without, I know everybody hates Voinov, but even without Voinov, even with Reguer being hurt for a month, who just came back, it's like, if we make a move for defenseman, if Voinov's not coming back this year, it's like, I don't see why our system wouldn't prevail in the end, in my opinion. So yeah, I think the Kings are still going to make the playoffs.
Yep. For sure. Yeah, it sucks. And then they're going to be really dangerous, and they're going to be low-seeded, and it's going to be bullshit.
Well, I still think we can get that third spot in the Pacific, which is what I want, because I want to play San Jose.
Wow, that's mean.
I'm sorry. I just don't want to end up in, like, the 7th or 8th, like, in the wild card spots and have to play Chicago in the first round. That would suck balls.
We're not winning this division. You would play Nashville, probably.
You still have plenty of time, too.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we can get second in the division.
Pecorini's back in practice, but at the same time... Okay, maybe you're right.
They're just...
6 points behind. They still have a game in hand on you.
They're going to have 2 games in hand. Well, no, they're playing tonight, too. It's tough to catch up. They're a really good team. My goal is to be second. Obviously, last year being third in the Central didn't hurt us any. I'd like to be second in the Central so we could have home ice. It'd help us throughout the playoffs if we beat whoever we play in the first round. I'm not looking forward to matching up with either St. Louis or Nashville, but at this point, I'm pretty much resigned to not winning the division. Um, I wouldn't want to play Nashville in the first round if I were you.
Neither would I.
Um,
That's why I said I really want to get into that third spot, which we are only 1 point behind Vancouver right now. Sounds terrible. I know that San Jose's out for revenge, and it's not that I'm really not trying to hate on San Jose. I'm just, in my opinion, from a Kings fan standpoint, I would much rather play San Jose than the Ducks or Nashville. Anyway, I think that I don't have much else to talk about tonight, and I don't know if you have anything else.
I've got one more shout out. Shout out to Ryan Murray. He is off IR, and he's going to play. Ryan Murray's been out all season. I thought he was tremendous last season. He was a huge part of the Blue Jackets making the playoffs. I know it's too late for them. Their season's been abysmal. They've been rocked by injuries. But everyone keep an eye on Ryan Murray as he plays. I think he's going to be a really great player, and he's finally coming back. So I'm just really excited. No one is as excited as I am. I am the most excited. Columbus fans are already sad about the season, and Sergei Bobrovsky not going to the All-Star game, which was the saddest story from the All-Star game. But I am just super pumped for Ryan Murray to come back.
Yeah.
So pumped. No one is as pumped as I am. You might be getting that picture.
All right.
I think that's all we got.
I don't really have anything else to say. I don't really have anything else to talk about. Nobody else is asking us any questions. It's been a good podcast. I appreciate all the feedback from the people on Twitter, and I appreciate RA for showing up and being here this week, especially since Dave Ball's out sick, and Dave Birding has
just to hang out with a cat.
Hang out with a cat.
Yeah, he just.
By the way, we didn't mention this earlier, but literally, that's why he's not here today. Dave Birding is house sitting and babysitting a cat. So I don't know why that prevents him from being on the podcast when he could literally just dangle a string off of his desk and entertain the cat for the entire time we're doing this. But it is what it is.
It is admittedly a really cute cat.
That's true. Dave Ball.
I hope you feel better, Dave Ball. I'm sorry that you're
not playing through injury. So
Dave Ball not truculent enough.
Yeah.
In fact,
well, I mean, if you look at the state of his team, obviously, he's taking a cue from them. So.
Yeah, you know what? You need to Zach Ronaldo up, Dave Ball. You need more Zach Ronaldo-ness. By which, well, I guess you are suspended right now from this podcast. Maybe you are maximum Zach Ronaldo.
He's taking 8 days off.
By the way, love you, Dan Carcillo. Don't miss you.
All right. Everybody have a good night. We love you all.
We'll see you next week. Now we play the exit song.
Go ahead.
It's the Dave and Ari Show. No one knows what we're talking about right now. Wait, this is still live. I think Dave just left it, but it's still live. Okay, if you're still listening to this, tweet at me right now, because I'm just going to keep talking and see how long I can go before Dave yells at me. So, I do hate you all. I love some of you. Should I give shout-outs to the people I love? I love, first of all, whoever's still listening to this, if anyone is. I don't think anyone is. Is it just me? Okay.